What's poppin', everybody? It's Tuesday. I was gonna say Friday. That's how the weeks are going. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hang on. Yeah. Let's let it cook. Yeah. What's happening, everybody? It is I was gonna say Friday again. It is the 14th. I was gonna say it's Friday the 14th. That's not true. It is Tuesday, February 14th. Happy Valentine's Day to all of you out there. My daughter got some Valentines this morning from, grandparents and us and, my wife, and I say us, the royal us. My wife did that, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. And she's very excited. Like holding on to Valentine's and running around in circles and stuff like that. Like she's very amped about Valentine's Day. It's one of those holidays that, they in episodes of Blue's Clues, sometimes shows will have like, instead of using the holidays by name, they will just kind of like have it's kind of like it's sort of similar to this. So there's like a Blue's Clues episode that's about something they just call Love Day instead of Valentine's Day. And for a while there, yeah, my daughter was referring to it as Love Day. It's like, no, it's Valentine's Day. I don't know, what is this Love Day? What is this? This is just, they're just trying to sell more, like, I don't know what, like Blue's Clues themed Valentine's. What is the end game there? And they don't shy away from some other, like there's a Hanukkah episode of Blue's Clues, and they are to talk about all of that stuff and everything. But I don't know for Valentine's Day was too hot. Like, whoa. So had to back off. But yeah, hey, happy Valentine's Day. It's also Girl Scout cookie season, which is nice. We've got a few boxes here that my wife picked up in front of the store the other day, and yeah, I don't know. It's I like Girl Scout cookies, but a lot of them are kind of not great, but they're still great. They're rarely worth it, I find. Like if you walked into the store and bought cookies, you could buy better cookies, honestly. But yeah, I don't know. I thought I hated the lemonade ones. They do a lemon cookie with a like a lemon bottom on it, and I remember getting them last year and hating them. But my wife bought a box this year because she knows I like lemon things, and that's a smart move. But I got, I was like, hey, you know what? Actually, these are not bad. For whatever reason, I remember hating those things. But no, I like the the peanut butter ones, not the ones that are covered in chocolate are fine too. But there's the ones that are just like the peanut butter sandwich cookies that are, basically Nutter Butters. Those are pretty good. I could knock out several thousand boxes of those probably. And then just the regular, just the, hey, we made some shortbread cookies with the Girl Scout logo on them. I mean, they're very plain, but like, hey, you can't go wrong with those either. So I don't know, support your local Girl Scout. The past few years, I feel like I would get like, whether it was Facebook or Twitter or, just like friends that had kids that were Girl Scouts, I would see a message that's like, hey, here's an online link you can buy, and it supports my daughter's troop and whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And then once you are in the system of buying them online, you start to look at like, well, if I get 12 boxes, then the shipping is free. And so when we're getting a box in the mail, we might as well fill it up. That you can get up to 12 before they start double charging, whatever the shipping gets to this, and so for the past few years there, yeah, we were getting, it was literally probably, I think it was like 12 boxes of Girl Scout cookies, and so I'd be like, well, let's get 4 of the peanut butter of these, and then 2 of these, and let's try these out, and you end up with a little bit of everything, and then 6 months have passed, and you go like, there's still like 4 boxes of Girl Scout cookies here. What are these Are these good still? Or did we screw this up? And so yeah, we would always go very hard on the Girl Scout cookies. And yes, at the end of it, it would be like, all right, now give us $130. Okay, well, okay. I don't like Samoas. People in chat are talking up Samoas. I'm not a big Samoas fan, but I'm not a big coconut guy. I'm not a coconut man. It's me, the coconut man. No, that's not me. Though I've come around to appreciating it in an energy drink, I guess. I like a coconut. I like coconut water. You know, but that's about it. I don't know. So you know, it's I contain multitudes, is what I'm saying. Some coconut is now okay. Some coconut can be on the menu, but there's still a lot of coconut not going for it. And the Samoas are on the other side of the line, so we're mortal enemies. And well, that's how it's always going to be. That's how I like it, honestly. Speaking of drinking drinks, let's get into this drink here. Let's see what's up with this thing. On account of I'm thirsty and want to drink a drink at this point in the program. We got a pile of A-Shocks in the mail. And we got a pile of a lot of stuff in the mail. This is I'm going to try to make it out to the P.O. box this week because I know there's some more packages waiting there, and hopefully it's not 9 more cases of energy drinks, but also this is the life I've chosen, and so now I have to deal with the consequences of that. A-Shock Energy Blue Raspberry, charged by nature, it says. Increase endurance. Ocean minerals. That's the minerals from the ocean. You can't go wrong with that. It's got BCAAs. Certified sport, it says. I don't know what that means. Is me drinking these a sport? Can I go to the energy drink Olympics? Can I win a gold medal for drinking energy drinks? Because I'm a world-class competitor as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, this is Blue Raspberry A-Shock Energy. I don't know. Let's try this out. Fresh out the freezer. Very cold. That smells like a blue raspberry drink. That smells nice. This smells. I am appreciating the scent here. It is a blue raspberry smell. It is not overly heinous, which is nice. Let's give it a go. Oh, that's nice. That's like kind of like a blue raspberry Slurpee or icy or something. You know, it's like that type of flavor. This is pretty good. I didn't like the orange A-Shock, but this is all right. You could drink this. Let's get this on the list and move on. We've got a lot of Jaguar CD games to talk about today. This is pretty nice. Let's take a look. Get the rankings up for folks watching the video version. We have 70 drinks on the list now. This would mix very well with vodka. If you were looking for an energy drink to mix with vodka, this would mix with it quite well. Let's see. Let's pick one at random here. Is it better than Monster Energy Ultra Rosa? I'm going to say yes. Is it better than Bang Swirly Pop? I'm going to say yes. Is it better than the G Fuel Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time Wumpa Fruit, which is currently at number 26? I'm going to say yes, it's better than that. Is it better than a C4 Orange Slice? I was slightly underwhelmed with C4 Orange Slice, given some of the other placements for C4 drinks and my love of orange. I was expecting more from it. And so I'm going to say it's better than that. But yeah, I think we've found it. We found the spot for it right away here. A-Shock Energy Blue Raspberry. You know, all the blue raspberries you find in nature. And congratulations to our new number 22. It's a little bit better than C4 Orange Slice. It's not as good as Ghost Swedish Fish. It's A-Shock Energy Blue Raspberry at number 22. It's been nice having some good drinks lately. It felt like we were on a run there where we were adding a lot to the bottom part of the list, and it was grim. It was grim on the energy drink drinking front. You know, when we started really, really building out the bottom third of the list, it was bad times. We've still got these 12 cans of Cintron here. I'm working my way through the Mountain Dew Pitch Black that someone sent in, and also under that is that case of Bang Miami Cola, which is dreadful. But I had another one over the weekend. It's still dreadful, but there are still 10 of them left, and so what is that? That's what, $35 worth of energy drinks. I'm not just going to let that go to waste. That would be dreadful, to be just like throwing out energy drinks. So in you know, as someone who drinks a single energy drink a day, I intend to drink everything that everyone sent, with the exception of a drink that didn't make the list because it had calories in it, and it's really rotten. It's a really rotten drink. Can't wait for my doctor to read my blood work. I don't know. I got blood work 6 months ago and some before that, and here's to you. Let's see here. What else is going on? I closed Notion and now I can't. I'm like, what's going on the show today? Like, it's not here. What video? Oh, have you played Super Mario Brothers? Let's see. Metroid Prime. They remastered it. They re-released Metroid Prime for the Nintendo Switch. I know, I was shocked as well. Who could have foreseen this thing that solidly leaked quite a while ago? But I guess, like, you know, a lot of folks seem to be expecting the full trilogy to get a remaster treatment, and we'll see if they do that. I don't know, right? I mean, you know, the longer they stretch out re-releasing the trilogy, the more they don't have to release Metroid Prime 4. So why not release one a year for the next three? Like, okay, we'll put out one in 2023, another one in 2024. Metroid Prime 3 comes out in 2025, and then Metroid Prime 4 2026, right? How's that sound? Good? Is that the plan? We'll see. Anyway, so I have never been a fan of Metroid Prime. When that first game came out, you know, and playing it again recently kind of reminded me of why. And you know, I think that the way that game controlled originally was not super awesome when you compared to the shooters of its day. And it kind of, like, it made me think about GoldenEye a lot, because it is very different from other first-person shooters. The other shooters that were coming out around Metroid Prime 2. I want to look. This was research I maybe could have done beforehand, but here we are. Okay, so what other shooters came out in 2002? Let's see if we can find... or just what else came out in 2002. So that was the same. That was the same year the Wind Waker came out. Not that that's a shooter, but if we're talking GameCube games, I would put Metroid Prime face down in a ditch and empty a bunch of bullets into the back of its head for Wind Waker, if that's how it had to go. That was the year Tony Hawk 4 came out. That was the year Metroid Fusion came out for the GBA. Now, that was a great Metroid game. Medal of Honor Allied Assault came out on PC that year. It was very well regarded. I have to admit I was not the hugest fan of that either. And that was the year Vice City came out. Yeah, okay. So, kind of a weird year. Maybe not a ton of shooters released exactly that year. That was also, Rez came out in early 2002 on the PlayStation 2. I don't know if that's, I don't know what territory that is. Anyway, you know, we're coming off of a good run, a lot of years of fast-paced arena shooters on the PC, competitive shooters, and things of that sort. And obviously, Metroid Prime is not that. And so I was really struck by, you know, as someone who was a big fan of the original Metroid. Metroid Prime is fascinating, or was, I guess. I'm not going to talk about my thoughts on the current game until we're done with this, okay? So the climate that game was coming out in, I think some people were ready for it and others were not. And I was not interested in that type of shooter. The slow-paced scanning, it was really, honestly, the thing was the lock-on targeting. It was that feeling of like, well, I'm here to shoot things, and if you are making the shooting things kind of automated, then what are we even doing? What's the point of this? And so, you know, the action in Metroid Prime really, really didn't do it for me. For that specific reason, you know, the way the lock-on, it's very good lock-on targeting. Like, it's extremely good lock-on targeting. But yeah, you know, so when you take Metroid Prime and you compare it to a lot of the other first-person shooters that were coming out around that time, it's a very different thing. And I think the way you kind of need to look at that is, well, maybe it's not a first-person. I mean, it's not a traditional first-person shooter. Obviously, you know, it's not trying to be that. It's really like they're trying to find a way to make a first-person Metroid game, and that was the, you know, it's a very different approach to designing a first-person shooter than other first-person shooters were going for. And that's why it reminds me of GoldenEye, you know, because GoldenEye is another game that, like, at the time was dramatically different than a lot of the shooters coming out around it. And, you know, was very focused on its kind of mission-based levels and, you know, the way the missions could, you know, be added or subtracted depending on difficulty. The location-based damage in that game was obviously a very different thing than most other shooters were doing at the time. And so the pace of GoldenEye, the style of GoldenEye, is also like a very different game. Now, GoldenEye, I don't think has aged especially well. I think that there's aspects of that game that you just kind of look at, especially once you do get to play it with modern controls. I think it kind of gets a little exposed, you know, and you're just like, okay, yeah, this was of its era for sure. And that's kind of how I've always felt about GoldenEye, which, you know, we talked about it at length, but, like, you know, GoldenEye benefited by being an N64 first-person shooter. That's a console that didn't have very many of those, and it's really amazing what they did on the N64. And then if you know, had a wider view of PCs and consoles and whatever else, like, you know, that's kind of inherently less interesting. But as an N64 game, it's among the best. Again, kind of a low bar when we're talking about the N64. And so Metroid, I think, is in a similar vein. The thing that's different, though, is I actually think that Metroid Prime is far better suited for right now than maybe it was then. And this version that they've put out on the Switch has much more modern controls. You know, it is a dual joystick game. It's not, you know, you don't have to get the Wii remaster and do stuff that, you know, it is. They have sat down with the controls and said, let's make this game largely control like other shooters on console controllers do. And that is probably one of the biggest, as much as it's like one of the most obvious and kind of one of the most like first check mark on your list sort of thing that you would probably think to do when remastering Metroid Prime. I cannot overstate the importance of that and how much better this game is right off the bat, just because you can play it in a way that feels like intelligently designed around that controller. And so I think a lot of the GameCube controls, and again, we're talking about 2002, so we're talking about, this is really before, you know, the first person shooter control scheme really got locked down around 07. You know, it really, I think that once Call of Duty 4 came out and was big, that became the expectation for what you would do. And there were games before that did similar stuff with the buttons and placement and whatever else. Obviously, Halo has been out before this, right? But the aim down sights, the shoot, not the throw grenade and shoot, which is insanity. The original Halo controls are nuts. They always were. And so I think there's, you know, there's obviously shooters kind of along the way that are kind of like figuring it out. But I think we get to like 07, 08, a lot of that stuff becomes locked down to where all of the other shooters that were coming out around that time, because it was coming out at a time when people were still trying to make Call of Duty knockoffs and whatever else. I think a lot of that stuff, a lot of those knockoff games just adopted, you know, largely the Call of Duty control scheme because it had become so ubiquitous and it just made a ton of sense. And so I think, you know, the industry largely kind of settled on that as the default control scheme. And so Metroid coming out before that is weird. You know, just like Black. Someone brought up Black, but Black is a really... The default controls in Black, which is, if you don't remember, that's a Criterion Games first-person shooter for the PS2 and Xbox. They're terrible by current standards. It's really... It's a real mess. And you can remap them and you can kind of get to where you want to go. And you know, it has like a very robust, as someone who remapped the Black controls about a week ago, it's, you can get there with it. You can get to mostly a modern feeling control scheme with that, but it's not quite there. Anyway, all of this is to say that like by adopting a better default control scheme, I think Metroid Prime shines. And I think that there's weird stuff where like by default there are 2 fire buttons because they're just like, I don't know, we have an extra button here, let's make this one shoot too. I'm like, all right, sure, yeah. And because of the way it so heavily uses lock-on targeting, it's not a game that necessarily expects you to use the right stick in conjunction with shooting, because you're hitting the left trigger to lock on. And then you can go ahead and mash out on the A button to fire if you want, because you're locked on. You don't need to use the right stick once you're locked on. And it's, I don't know, it's weird. It's weird, but, you know, from going through and playing the first hour of it again and trying to remember, you know, how I felt about it back then, like, it was really just like, yeah, I'm still not like a massive fan of some of those ideas, right? The lock-on targeting, and then once you're locked on, you can kind of do a dash to dodge incoming attacks and stuff like that. But I think there's aspects of the lore that became prevalent around the time of the Metroid Prime trilogy, insofar as the game got a more significant lore, right? Suddenly there were scannable objects that could tell you about things, as opposed to just like, I don't know, man, run to the right, and then out of this weird statue's holding a missile. Get the missile and fucking then open the doors, dumbass. Okay. Now you scan things and it's like, we're the Chozo. And I hate the word chozo. I think that the term chozo is silly and fucking stupid. And it's that, like, that to me just sets the tone for a lot of the lore coming out of the Metroid Prime games. Everything about those stories in those games, and I did not play through 2 or 3 so much as I like played them and went like, yeah, they made another one of those. But the way that they tried to flesh out the Metroid story over the course of those 3 games, and the way people took to those, and the way people took to those in favor of the actual good Metroid games, was always like frustrating and weird. It was just like, what the fuck? And like, no, man, it says Dread here, and now there's going to be they're going to do like all the breathless like Metroid fanboy that only played the first person shooters was at one time just like one of the more insufferable fucking things happening in gaming. So yeah, I don't know, like I think that this is a really awesome game in a lot of ways, but also it's not, it's more interesting to go back to now that you can kind of like play it with more modern, and obviously there have been weird hacks and people have done things over the years to try to make it play better, but I never really messed with that stuff. And so this is kind of the first time I've played Metroid Prime since probably spending about 20 minutes with the Wii version and going like, ugh, no, why? No. And so, so I haven't seen this game in forever. And so going back to it and seeing it, like I feel like it's pretty well modernized. There's aspects of just like animations and stuff here and there that look a little underwhelming, I guess I would say, by modern standards. But it's the textures look good, the graphics look nice, Samus looks good, and it's interesting to explore that world. But I think that for me, the part about it I like is not so much about actually exploring the world and seeing what there is to see. I'm not getting a ton of joy out of like, I'm going into these ruins and oh, look at this, there's sand. It's really more looking at it from a step further back and going like, wow, these people had to sit down and think about, they really had to sit down and go, what is Metroid? What the hell is Metroid, and what does it mean to be a Metroid game? And what are the things we can do to adapt those concepts into a first-person game? And I think like and from that angle, walking through it and seeing all the different things they did to like, okay, here's a tunnel that you can only get through, and seeing the kind of the Metroidvania style of level design, world design, and all of that applied to a first-person game is really interesting, especially when you take it in account that the game was originally, released in 2002. And so playing it again now, it's like, hey, this is really neat. There are still aspects of this game that I just don't care for, and I'm never gonna get invested in the lore of these games. And like, but also it's interesting seeing like, okay, the dumb creature that just crawls around the platform over and over again until you kill it. What would that look like in a first-person game? What would its behavior be? What would we have it do? Like, hey, how are we, these wasps that fought, like whatever. Seeing the different dumb little 8-bit Metroid enemies like rethought and redeployed in a first-person game is really interesting to see. And so I think it's pretty neat. And of course you can scan everything. Which I started out doing and then got to a point where I'm like, I don't actually like, so there are so many scannable objects in that. So if you haven't seen the game, You can switch to a scan visor, and it puts icons over things you can scan. And some of it is like, you scan this panel to activate an elevator, and so that's a thing you have to do to proceed. Or like, hey, there's turrets around the corner here, but if you scan this thing first, it will disable the turrets, and then you won't even have to fight them. But so much of it is just like, I'm going to scan this dead body, and then the scan says, this guy got his organs ripped out. And you're like, oh, that seems grim. Oh, well, anyway, how'd this guy die? Oh, he's dead. Okay. Thank you, another dead space pirate. And so, like, you know, they went a little overboard on the scanning stuff. There would be a neat, this might ruin the game, but what if they had a toggle, because they're remastering it, right? What if they had a toggle that said like minimal scans? That was like, hey, we're going to take, there's a lot of scans we've identified as perhaps superfluous. And we want to leave some of it in because it is good flavor for the universe. But maybe we don't need to have this many things. And so if they, you know, like, hey, we went through and removed 40% of the scanning, and then there's a toggle to turn it back on, or whatever it is. That would be like like a lot of remakes have the, RPG remakes have like, hey, we've adjusted the random encounter rate to be reasonable to modern audiences, or whatever. And maybe this could have a different scanning thing to be like, here's the stuff that's actually like interesting, to stop you from, because, you know, like, I think it's interesting to scan every enemy you see and then like get a little bit of detail about them. And, you know, like, I'm not saying reduce it down to only the ones that activate elevators, no story, no, like, that would be pointless. That would be too much the other way. Like, you need to have a middle ground would be interesting there. Alternately, people could just show restraint and not scan everything, which is eventually where I ended up, of just like, I'm just gonna keep going. If there's action in this room, I'm not going to clear it out and then scan. I'm just gonna keep moving. It'll be okay. But yeah, I think it's a very well done. It's a very well done remake of that game. And having it be available at, you know, kind of a discounted price, a reasonable price, I think is pretty nice. So, yeah, if you're interested in playing a game like that on the Switch, then it runs well, it does well. It's a pretty solid thing, all told. And I guess I came away from it a little surprised. Like, I enjoyed it more than I thought I would, because again, every time I've tried to play a Metroid Prime game, it's just been like, God, this is no fun at all. But this is again, you know, the combat kind of is what it is. It's not, you know, you're not lining up headshots. You're not aiming. You know, you can manually aim, but why? Like, the lock-on targeting is so... the game is designed around you having the lock-on targeting. So, you know, it's really, you know, effective and all of that stuff. And I just, you know, some of the boss fights I think are kind of bad. It's like, especially the stuff early on. Like, you know, you get to the first missile tank, and it's just like, here's a big spinning metal thing that shoots wasps. And you got to shoot some wasps and then shoot the metal thing 3 times and it'll blow up, and then you get the missiles. Like, there's really some stuff early on in that game when there's still kind of either showing you the ropes or taking it a little easy on you, that it's just like, man, this is a little rough. But yeah, overall, I came away from it pretty into it. I don't know. Like, I will probably spend some more time with it, but yeah, I guess, like, as someone who's never really liked any of the Prime games, I came away from it going like, hey, this is actually really well done, and you know, changing the controls and making that stuff work a little bit better, and it looks nice. Like it's a solid version of that game. It's the best that game has ever been, I guess. Let's say that. What else? I have been playing, and the demo is over now as of, I guess, yesterday. But I continued to play Meet Your Maker. We streamed some of that last week during the Steam the Steam demo zone, whatever that thing was called. And if you don't remember, Meet Your Maker is a first-person shooter where you create your own bases, and then you go and raid other players' bases, and you can go see. Basically, you're filling these bases full of traps and enemies, and you don't want them to get in, steal your stuff, and then get out. Meanwhile, you want to go into other people's bases, steal their stuff, and get out. And I found that game incredibly thrilling. It's out in April. I'm really looking forward to it. Just the base building is not as smooth as it probably could be. Like the controls are maybe a little clunky. It's a block-based editor, so you're just plopping down cubes and then mapping a trap onto the side of that cube or whatever it is. And trying to make as deadly of an area as you can. And by default, your character only has 2 bullets, but you can collect your bullets after you shoot them. And so it's this very tense game where you know you can't just like hold down the fire button to take care of problems. You have a sword that you can use to take out traps if you are close to them. And it's a game with like, okay, you see this, you know to counter it like this. You see this, you know how to deal with it. And so you're learning how to go through those bases with a little bit more confidence, and you start to pick up the pace, and then you realize like, now I'm going too fast, and I got stabbed from behind by a weird spike trap. And it's really great. It's really, really great. There's a whole like kind of out of game leveling experience of like you gain levels and you feed your advisors to this alien guy because you're stopping some sort of virus, or there is a whole thing to it. I assume that stuff will be, well, I don't know, maybe it won't be, but like will the full game get into that a little bit more? Maybe, I don't know. But and hopefully the full game has more traps and more variety, and maybe also has a slightly easier leveling curve, because getting upgrades, like important upgrades, like what if I had a 3rd bullet, for example, that would be sweet. But it takes you a long time to get to a point where you have enough currency to get a 3rd bullet, which in a lot of ways makes that 3rd bullet feel like the game changer that it truly is. But yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to see what changes they make in the full game. After a few days, they put up a link to a survey that was full of all sorts of questions about like, is the level editing good or bad? Is the level editor bad, or is it fun? Did you use a controller to do it? No? Okay. And I bet that game would not be as fun on a controller. It's coming to console and stuff like that, but we'll see. I don't know. To me, that game feels very much like a mouse and keyboard kind of game, but I'll try it on console when it comes out, I guess. Gosh, what else? So yeah, you're getting flame traps and bomb traps and spike traps and all this stuff, and then you're going through other people's bases to see like how they use those tools. And it's great in the same way that Mario Maker is great, because when you play other people's levels, it gives you ideas for how you could go back and do something more devious in your own base. Or you can have multiple bases up and running at a time because you're milking some currency out of it as you're doing it. And that's the best feeling of like, okay, I beat this base, but also there's like 3 things in here that I didn't know you could do or never thought of to do that now I want to do because it was really devious. And so that's a ton of fun too. And so I feel like, if they keep adding on more traps and keep adding more things and players keep using them in increasingly devious ways, that's a game that could be a lot of fun for a long time. If it doesn't have enough content, then it's a game that I think people would probably burn out on after a month or so, but we'll see. I don't know what their plan is. But yeah, I had a really great time with that demo. You should give it a look. There's a lot of trade-offs you can make with the gear too. Like I'm talking about this gun that only has 3 bullets. Like you can eventually buy a gun that has like 9 or more, but the bullets from that gun don't break traps, and I think they don't break armor either. So an enemy that has armor on might not be as affected as much, and you can't break traps from a distance. And so that trade-off to me is crazy because I want to be able to shoot a trap from a distance and blow it up before it blows me up. But yeah, it's a game that makes you think when you're not playing it. I definitely spent a lot of time not playing it, but still thinking about it, going like, okay, well, what if so if I did like a ramp up here and then had a fake wall, so when you walk near this wall, the fake wall drops and there's an enemy there, but also there's another fake wall that drops above you that you might not see because you see the one on your right and you turn to the right, but meanwhile the fake wall above you has gone away and there's a trap there that's going to come down and get you. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff. So that's Meet Your Maker. It's on, I don't know, there's pages on Steam or whatever if you're into wish listing stuff or whatever. But, it's kind of the demo is over. But the game's out in, I think, like 2 months. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I have really high hopes for it. I had a really, really good time with that demo. So, go watch that stream if you want to see more, I guess. I went through the building stuff for the first time, and it's like I said, some of the building stuff's a little bit clunky, but once I built one base, I kind of got the hang of it and was like, okay, like there's aspects of this that could be probably a little bit smoother, but it's fine. The only other demo I tried as part of the hot demo express on Steam is a game called Time Wasters. And Time Wasters is, I need to remember the name of the other games that the studio has made. This is from the developers of Time Clickers, which is an idle game, but it is also a first-person shooter and a big multiplayer game. Time Clickers is really awesome. It's a really neat idea because, like, you are on a server with other players and you are all kind of moving forward and you can form a convoy with other players and kind of truck through the zones. I'm guessing it's a little less interesting now because, there's probably not as many people playing it. At some point, they finished development and they're like, okay, here it is. And then everyone got to like a really max level and I bet it's not as exciting as it probably was when it first came out. I'm sorry. Time Warpers is the game I'm thinking of. They also made a game called Time Clickers, which is a stationary first-person idle game where you are kind of clicking to shoot, but you're not moving. Time Warpers is you're moving through environments, and there are hidden cubes, and so you can get on a bike and automatically truck through the zones on a set path. But you can also get off and jump around and dodge bullets, and but you eventually get powerful enough that you don't have to dodge bullets. And so it's an interesting take on the idle game. All that said, when this Time Wasters demo appeared on Steam from the same developers, I was like, okay, cool, because it looks like a dual joystick shooter. Or it looks like it may potentially be an ass game. And so I'm like, yes, I want more auto survival shooter games in my life. But also this one is from a developer of idle games. And so what does that mean? How do those mechanics fit in? The description says, collect time cubes to bend the timeline to your advantage. And the previous games have used time cubes as a very key currency as well. And so I'm going into it going like, oh man, okay. So we've got an ass game. We've got an auto shooting survival game in the same vein as a Vampire Survivors, perhaps, but it's maybe also an idle game from the developers of Time Warpers. What are we getting? But it's a far more traditional game than their previous work. It is a run-based dual joystick shooter. You can. Let's see. So they have found a way to straddle the line between an ass game and a dual joystick shooter. So it has when you are not firing, when you let off the trigger, your main weapon will just fire in a direction. It will fire at the nearest enemy, and it will do its thing automatically in a very Vampire Survivors-esque sort of way. But you can also just use the mouse or the right stick, however you're playing, and take control of that main weapon yourself and decide to fire it manually. But then the rest of your weapons all fire automatically. That's like Hollow Cure, exactly. And so the rest of your weapons do fire automatically the way that they're just going to fire, the way they would in a Vampire Survivors, if you will. And other than that, big bosses come along and you blow them up, and you're getting currency, and you're getting upgrades, and you're getting, your run-based thing is happening the same way it does in all of these other games. And the time cubes are really used as just a run-based currency. Like, there's a shop you can go to on the map once you get enough time cubes, and you can basically buy a bunch of upgrades all at once. And so Time Wasters doesn't really seem to have the same kind of idle game concepts as Time Warpers or Time Clickers do. Or rather, if they do, it's not really present in the demo in a hugely meaningful way. And so as a fan of Time Warpers and Time Clickers, I guess I was left a little cold by this, because I was hoping that it would be something a little more in line with those strengths, of like, and just the very idea of like, hey, we want to make one of these run-based, rogue light shooters, but also we make games with an idle component and so on. I was like, okay, how are they going to pull that off? And it just seems like it's not one of those. It seems like, so in a lot of ways, Time Wasters feels very much like it is kind of chasing the trend a little bit harder than I would like. And so there's a part of me that, like, I hope that it has some kind of larger idle progression component or something that kind of plays to what I have viewed as the strengths of the developers' two previous games. That said, all of this just made me want to reinstall Time Warpers, but that would be pointless, because I think I leveled up high enough in Time Warpers that, like, I can just kind of sit there and just go, and there's really nothing left to be done. Not that I've purchased every single upgrade, but I've got enough of them that it's like, all right, this is maybe not awesome. Yeah, I could always help lower level players. You're right. Yeah, when you connect to Time Warpers, you are helping other players by forming a convoy with them and trucking them along to the later levels. So there's always that. But yeah, Time Wasters seems like pretty good for what it is. I guess like, I just, as a fan of those other games, I was kind of hoping for a little bit more of that side of things, and that seems very light to non-existent in this. So we'll see. That game is not quite out yet also. And I don't know if that demo is still, some of these demos just stay live, right? I think the Meet Your Maker one is down, but some of these may still be up. The other big thing I've been playing, the other big games I've been playing, the Atari Jaguar CD. It was an add-on for the Atari Jaguar that let you play games off of compact discs, which was like a disc-based technology. Held like, let's call it like, 640-ish megabytes of data, somewhere in that zone. And I had never played any games on the Jaguar CD. Any of them. I had seen one in person. Ryan McDonald had a Jaguar CD, but he had a spoon, like he had a spoon jammed into it to keep the lid down. I guess the lids on those things were notorious for breaking, and so it was just like this weird toilet-looking thing sticking out of the top of a Jaguar with a spoon sticking out of it. I'm like, oh, you got one of those, huh? And then I think that might be the only one time I ever saw one in person, actually hooked up to a TV. The big PMU. Rich Whitehouse's Atari Jaguar emulator has been updated to support the Jaguar CD, which is a magical time because that is not something that a lot of other emulators have even attempted to do. And so the time is now for you to do the math once again and play Atari Jaguar games on a PC, but now also Atari Jaguar CD games. And again, I had not seen any of these, so last Friday I spent some time with some of those games. That video is up on YouTube now. And oh boy, what I'm loading up the list. I'm opening up the directory full of Jaguar CD games. So it is, the Jaguar already is such a weird system. It's such a weird console and has such a weird lineup that the CD add-on for it is even crazier. Some of it is like pretty expected, you know. Space Ace is there, you know. They did VidGrid, a music video puzzle game, came out on the Jaguar CD. Myst came out there. Primal Rage, there's a CD version of that. Brain Dead 13, which is a Dragon's Lair-esque game that came out across a handful of CD-based platforms at the time. But there's one game that stuck out at me in a way that, like, I don't want to play it again, but I may play it again, and that game is called Highlander: The Last of the MacLeods. And I guess it is based on a Highlander animated series that I was not familiar with. It is, gosh. It's an action adventure game. You are kind of walking around these set environments with camera cuts. It controls like Alone in the Dark or Resident Evil 1. It's very tank controls. And you have a handful of attacks. You eventually get a sword, and you occasionally run into enemies. You should go look at go to the YouTube channel that I'm running on YouTube and smash that follow button and go look at go look at this. It's intensely terrible in a very fascinating way. You know, you're killing enemies to get bread and recovering health that way, but also like every fight is a hassle. It, in some ways, it reminds me of The Last Ninja for the Commodore 64, but not good. Visually, it's a disaster. The music in it is like basically a 1-bar loop, like count to 4 and then it loops again, which is like the most. I want to remix that entire soundtrack because those loops are so fucking awful, but also like just drill them into your fucking head over and over because it's just a 4-bar loop. Yeah, and this was a CD-based console. You could add Redbook audio on that thing, but instead, it's really fucked up. It's a really fucked up game. I don't even know. Like, thinking about it now, it feels like a fever dream of a product. It's just so fucking ridiculous, man. It is just a nonsense ass video game, and the combat in it is very clunky. Everything in it is very clunky. Navigating the environment is very clunky. Trying to figure out how does one screen connect to another. When you walk off the edge of one screen and walk on the other and you're facing a different direction, and it's because it's, you know, all cinematic and tank-based controls because, you know, a lot of developers thought that was the hot shit at the time. I was like, Alone in the Dark was the big one. I mean, Resident Evil was the big one, but this is, you know, Was Twinson's Adventure was one of these too, right? Like it had a similar Little Big Adventure, Twinson's Adventure, depending on what region you were in. I think it was called something different. I want to say that it had a very similar kind of tank control kind of thing. And it's a real mess. It's a real mess. And I feel drawn to it. And so, as a result, I have not been able to try this yet, but this showed up last night. One of the other problems with playing Jaguar games, not on a Jaguar, is when you don't use the Jaguar controller. The Jaguar controller had 3 buttons on the face and a D-pad, but it also had a 12-key keypad below it. One to, like a phone, basically. It was like a phone keypad on it. And so I purchased this USB device that will let me plug a Jaguar controller into my PC. And now I just need to get my stepladder. I need to find my stepladder so I can get to my Jaguar box and pull a controller out of it. And then you're going to see some serious shit. Because then we'll be playing Jaguar games the way they were meant to be played. God damn it. Yes, there is a Jaguar Pro controller that has more buttons on it. The idea of a Jaguar Pro controller, like, hey, we put 6 buttons on the face and 2 shoulder, like, no one cares. It's the goddamn Jaguar. But I think the Jaguar is a bad console. I always have. But also, I am incredibly fascinated by bad consoles and trying to go back to them and go like, what was the... And I had a Jaguar back when they were coming out, back when games were still coming out for it. And it was just as flabbergasting then as it is now. It's probably a little bit more flabbergasting now. But like at the time even, it was just like, what is going on? This is silly. Why would Atari put this... Why does Atari think that this is going to make a dent in anything ever? It was incredibly easy to see from a distance that this was not going to go well. No number of you could do the math as many different ways as possible, and it would never come out in Atari's favor. But I am nothing if not a dedicated idiot, and so I have purchased this USB adapter, and I am very excited to spend some more time with Jaguar games. Which ones? I don't know. Like, which ones? Like, not Iron Soldier 2. Like, they've got all these, battle morph, like these other CD games where you're flying spaceships and piloting mechs and all this other stuff, but like, none of they're not great. Tempest 2000 is a great game, but Tempest 2000 doesn't really use the keypad, and so you can really easily play Tempest 2000 with this emulator on a PC just fine. You don't need to jump through hoops to play that. It's just you can just do it. But what you can't do very easily is play Tempest 3000. Because Tempest 3000, I mean, you want to, this is nothing. This little USB adapter for the Jaguar is nothing compared to what I'm about to suggest. Because Tempest 3000 only came out on the Nuon. And if you've never heard of the Nuon, the Nuon is a DVD player that also can play video games. And it is... there are even fewer... we're talking about the low number of Jaguar CD games, but the Nuon is even lower. There's there's a Mario Kart-esque game with Atari characters in it, Atari Karts. I believe that is no, that came out on the Jaguar, right? No. There's weird overlap. There's weird overlap between the Jaguar and the Nuon, which should tell you something about where the Nuon is starting from. And a couple different companies made Nuon compatible DVD players. The idea was like, oh, someday every DVD player is going to have Nuon technology in it, and people will just play games like that. Like, yeah, I bet. Sure. That's definitely going to happen. Yeah, you guys are really onto something. Absolutely. Yes. Yes, John. Merlin Racing was the kart racer for the Nuon. But Tempest 3000 also came out there. And so you can find Nuon players on eBay for probably, I think, a couple $100. I haven't looked in a while. But the controllers are hard to come by. And so, and I guess because of the specificity of the controller, I believe it had some kind of analog stick on it, and this is why it's this way, because this is an insane sentence I'm about to say. Someone is releasing an adapter that allows you to connect Nintendo 64 controllers to a Nuon. That's it. That's the sentence. And because Nuon controllers are shockingly expensive. And so if you want an original Nuon controller, it gets to be pretty pricey. And so, like, yes, I don't know that I don't know if it is quite out yet, or but I've seen test shots of it, and I'm not sure if it is actually on sale yet. But yes, the adapter to hook N64 controllers up to a Nuon is a new development, a pretty recent development. And so as a result, you no longer have to go on eBay and try to find a broken Nuon controller and hope that it works and whatever else. Now anyone with a functional working Nuon DVD player can enjoy the magic of the Nuon. And so that's got me thinking about buying a Nuon again. This is a sickness that it goes every, let's say, 2 years or so. The feeling of like, well, I don't think I've ever played a game on the Nuon either, and so I should probably do that. I should probably see what the Nuon was all about, up close and personal. I should really be able to talk about, I should really see the Nuon. And so then I find myself on eBay going like, these Nuon prices are not great, but they're also higher than they were last time. So maybe I should just get a Nuon now. Is it just a USB input? God, no. If it's just a USB input, then people would be plugging weird things into Nuons for forever. There have been attempts at emulating the Nuon, but none of them are good enough to really consider the games playable. And those efforts have long since gone dormant. So I don't think anyone is actively working on a Nuon emulator, unfortunately. Maybe there's a couple of people out there working on secret cores for the Mister. Maybe one of them is the Nuon. Maybe. I don't know. They still need a good Jaguar core over there, so maybe we'll get one of those there eventually too. So anyway, that's the important work I've been doing. Why don't we get on to the news? The news is brought to you by patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann. Head over there. I'm running a frickin' Patreon. You can sign up and get access to an ad-free version of this show. You get bonus content. The most recent episode of Game Boys to Men went up last week. The newest Jeff Gerstmann Hall of Fame will be going up this week. And yeah, go check that out. You can hop on the Discord and with the rest of these troublemakers. Oh, someone has linked to Big Fish has linked to a Nuon in the. Oh God, it's $500 for a Nuon. I don't want to spend that kind of money on a Nuon. No one should spend that kind of money on a new one. But also, what if I bought a new one? I should. I can't buy. I'm not gonna buy a new one. But also, what? No. Maybe. What if I mean, well, I'll spend some time looking at pricing new ones after the show and see if I can find one that's not $500, because that one comes with a controller. And so I bet if I got one without a controller and then bought this controller adapter, maybe that would be a cheaper way to go. So, speaking of a cheaper way to go, that's not a good one of those. GamesIndustry.biz has the headline: Microsoft confirms Game Pass cannibalizes sales. This is part of the ongoing disclosures that the ongoing arguments that Microsoft has been having with governments around the world, really, but really in the UK, it's been a thing there of trying to get this Activision purchase over the line, trying to get this thing to happen, and there's a lot of digging into a lot of the different aspects of Microsoft's business and some of Sony's business a little bit, as they are being called on to testify, and they are saying that Microsoft is harassing them with unnecessary legal requests, and this process is getting extremely messy. Anyway, as part of this, this is coming out of the provisional report from the UK Competition and Markets Authority, which is the body that governs these sorts of corporate mergers. And the quote out of that provisional report is: Microsoft also submitted that its internal analysis shows a decline in base game sales 12 months following their addition on Game Pass. There's a percentage in that report, but that percentage has been redacted out for the public version of it. And so we don't know how much of a decline. So just I'll say that again slower. A decline in base game sales 12 months following their addition on Game Pass. And this runs pretty directly in the face of what Microsoft's position has largely been when it comes to Game Pass and what it does for game sales and everything else. Whereas, GamesIndustry.biz has this quote from Phil Spencer in 2018, where he said, when you put a game like Forza Horizon 4 on Game Pass, you instantly have more players of the game, which is actually leading to more sales of the game. You say, well, isn't everyone just going to subscribe for $10 and go play this thing? But no, gamers find things to play based on what everybody else is playing. That's so those two things seem like they're pretty directly in conflict, though that other quote is from 2018, and I guess the thing I would think is 2018 is now 5 years ago, and so after 5 more years of Game Pass, I bet that some of the metrics, some of the numbers have changed, right? Where in 2018, when it was a much smaller service, that probably was true. But then everyone caught wind of this Game Pass thing and said, fuck it, I'm going to sign up for that. And now maybe they've hit a tipping point where now suddenly it's like, oh, more and more people are now just signing up for Game Pass. And so perhaps that has changed here in 2023. That is my guess on how that probably lines up, is that they're pulling quotes from 2018 for this. But also they're talking about base game sales, and so you have to wonder. So remember, when you get Game Pass, you are not getting every single add-on transaction. You are not getting, I don't believe you're getting DLC, especially for third-party games. But correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to say that Forza Horizon 5, you did not get that DLC for free. You did not get the car pass for free on Game Pass. I know with Halo, they kind of did a different thing because they made the campaign is technically DLC, but they made that part of Game Pass. But yeah, you don't really get DLC there. You get that discount. And so I think the thing you probably end up happening there is that some of that money gets shifted around a little bit, where you're like, okay, now instead of this money going towards a game sale, now it is going towards a subscription. But also, if people get way into a game, they're more likely to monetize on the back end. And so they probably end up buying slightly more DLC, would be my guess. That's not included as part of the report, so we don't really know. But that would be my guess, is that some players are a little bit more likely. Now, also, I guess the thing I would say is that probably only really applies directly to first-party games, where they can say that, because that's where, Microsoft is getting the lion's share of that subscription fee because they're running the service. If you're a third party on Game Pass, then your game is going to come and go, right? And so once your game is off Game Pass as a third party game, then they give you that window where if you're a Game Pass member, you can buy it at a discount. And I'm sure some people convert at that point. They're like, oh, this game I like is leaving Game Pass, I better buy it. Maybe that happens. I think more likely people would go like, well, I'm done with that game anyway, and I'm playing something else now. But I would wonder, because I think, there's, I think you end up with so many different considerations and so many different cases here that it's probably hard to pin it down directly to every single game sees a decline in their sales. Every single game sees this percentage of decline. They're seeing it as internal analysis shows this percentage, but I bet spread across a lot of different games, that probably gets a little weird. Like an ongoing game is going to be a game that people are going to keep playing, and they're going to keep monetizing. They're going to keep buying things as things keep coming out. And it's a different story than like, here's this one and done single player game and it's on Game Pass and you're definitely going to finish it while it's on Game Pass. And why would you buy it? And so hopefully games like that are then getting a slightly better deal on the front end because they know they're not going to be able to make it up on the back. So with the number of different deals that Microsoft has in place and the way that they approach different games and different studios differently with the terms of the service, it's hard to kind of just purely look at this as like some smoking gun, like, Game Pass is fucking over the video game industry, which I know a lot of people have been wanting to say for a long time, but it's way muddier than that. And I'm sure in some cases there have probably been some devs that have come out of it and been like, this was not a great move for us, or it's hard to tell if this was the best move for us because maybe we would have made up the money we made off Game Pass by just purely selling the game. And so, but yeah, again, with every case being different like that, it is very hard to tell. And so Eurogamer actually has a response from Microsoft on this. And they wrote a couple of paragraphs back to Eurogamer. Let's see here. And it's, this is not super deep. This is not super informative. Xbox Game Pass offers gamers and game creators more choice and opportunity in how they discover, experience, and deliver games. For gamers, that means providing another option for them to discover games and play with friends at a great value. For developers, that means creating another option for how they monetize their games. We're focused on helping game creators of all sizes maximize the total financial value they receive through Game Pass. Each game is unique, so we work closely with creators to build a custom program to reflect what they need, ensure that they're compensated financially for their participation in the service, and allow room for creativity and innovation. As a result, the number of developers interested in working with Game Pass continues to grow. Which doesn't have a lot, there's not a lot there, right? They're like, no, basically they wrote back and said, nah, it's fine, dog. Walk away. But at the end of the day, like, it is hard to pin this down as a purely negative thing, right? Because if a developer is making all of their money up front in Game Pass subscriptions, then they don't care if it doesn't sell as well on the other end of it. They got paid up front. They're like, this is great, you know, and you've heard developers say as much about their experience on the service, but you have also heard other developers be a little more, maybe not as loud, but you've seen some grumbling about Game Pass as well. And so I assume that means that sometimes the deal is not as good, or sometimes a developer signs a deal that they should not have signed or should have negotiated for something better or whatever. So yeah, I don't know. This seems like it is going to end up being probably the big story this week, as people have been kind of thinking about Game Pass and wondering if it's actually good for video games for a lot of years now. And this is the first time we've seen anything, especially out of Microsoft, where they're like, oh, actually, yeah, fewer people buy a game, which I think the takeaway from that is like, yeah, no shit. Again, like, especially with some of the smaller games on Game Pass that, you know, if you finish these games, if you are, you know, if these are story-driven games, single-player games, whatever, you are going to get to the end of that game and you're going to go, cool, man, I'm done. Now, occasionally you're going to have that knock-on effect, right? And this is something that, like, Steam Deck is actually a really good companion for Game Pass. I know you can jump through all the hoops to get Game Pass games up and running on a Steam Deck, but that's not something that a lot of people are going to do. But I mean, I've seen cases of people going like, I have Game Pass, but I bought Hi-Fi Rush because I wanted to play it on my Steam Deck. And so there's a sale that probably wouldn't have happened. Anyway, I think that, you know, you have a lot of cases of like, oh, if a lot of players are playing a game on Game Pass, they're talking about it a lot. And that word of mouth is going to reach players that don't have Game Pass, and that word of mouth is going to lead to sales on other platforms, and so on and so forth. And so I bet that, again, my point is that this is a very murky thing. And so, you know, how do you, like you can't quantify, because Microsoft is not going to have all the numbers on how well those third-party games do on Steam. They'll have some anecdotal evidence, but that's not going to be a part of this report. So they're not going to go like, but it leads to an increase in sales on Steam and PlayStation. It leads to more, but it probably, in some cases, via word of mouth, does lead to players buying the PlayStation version of a game because their friend who has an Xbox is talking it up so much. That's not, you know, again, that stuff is not quantifiable in a traditional metric, and so it's you know, hard to even lean on it and all of that. But on one hand, it's a no-brainer. Again, the idea that, like, hey, if a game is on Game Pass, fewer people buy it. Like, that seems like common sense to me. The catch is that it kind of goes in the face of what Microsoft has said, and they haven't talked about it in a while, right? This is, again, a quote from 2018 that people are comparing this to when they say this stuff. So it's but the Microsoft statement is about, like, hey, this is about finding more ways to get money to developers. And so in a world where, yes, the game sale is not the end all be all, because they're getting subscription revenue, and if they have add-ons in their game, are they getting add-on revenue or whatever? Like, it's hard for me to look at what is out here this week and look at all these statements and look at all these stories and just go like, well, Game Pass is fuck, you know, like it's not nearly as cut and dry as that. So that's also, like, incredibly interesting, though, to have some of this stuff come out. And there's another there's a bit here elsewhere in the report, according to Brendan Sinclair, the one and only, saying that in this CMA report that the UK issued, it says Microsoft is saying that Activision took a dim view on putting its titles into multi-game subscription services on any platform, believing they severely cannibalize buy-to-play sales, particularly in the case of newer releases. And so Activision themselves think that which again, this is if you look at, we'll get into that in a sec here. But what they're saying is that Activision thinks that putting their games into subscription services will dramatically hurt the sales of them. They're right. Like, yeah. If you, especially in a situation where Microsoft owns it and can put Call of Duty in it in perpetuity, and you know it's not going to go away, then like, yeah, no shit. Definitely. Now, Activision is a weird... Activision's view, and I don't know if they're still this way, but I remember hearing this when the first Warzone... When Modern Warfare 1, the reboot came out, and Warzone came out alongside it, I remember hearing that Activision still very much viewed Call of Duty as a full-priced video game. Even as more and more players were going to Warzone and that the Warzone stuff was really blowing up for them and doing really well, that there was still a view inside of Activision that Warzone was really just a demo for the full Call of Duty experience. Which, when you think about how popular Warzone got in the face of the traditional multiplayer in Modern Warfare, is silly. But it's also why old Call of Duty games don't go on sale the same way Nintendo games don't go on sale, is because for a few reasons. One, Activision likes to make money on the older games, but they want you to buy the new one. And if you can get last year's game for $20 on a regular basis, if you can get 2 years old game for $20, $10, whatever it is, then fewer players are going to make the jump forward. Budget conscious players might go like, well, I'll just get Black Ops Cold War. Does it suck? I don't know. Aren't all these games the same anyway? Like, at that point, the kind of more casual buyer, they don't care if they're playing a game that's 3 years old as long as there's still people on the servers. They're just like, whatever, I'll play a shooter and I can shoot people. It's fun. As opposed to always needing to get the newest and latest. And so, of course, Activision's view of this is like, hey, anything that gets in the way of our $60 now $70, like, that's where we make our money. We want to protect that at all costs, because as a company that only sells fucking Call of Duty, if we remove the Blizzard and King parts of this equation, but if we think about Activision as Activision, they've got to protect that at all costs because they have fucked over their releases. So, like, that's the only thing they put out. So if they can't sell Call of Duty at $70, they don't have anything else to like cushion the blow. They're not like, well, people will buy Tony Hawk, or someone's, hey, Singularity 2 is going to knock it out of the park. Don't fucking worry, you guys. Like, they don't have shit. They fucked over everything along the way. They're not like, we think Guitar Hero is going to save the quarter. No. They're like, we have to get as many people to pay $60 or $70 for Call of Duty as possible. Our entire year is based around this November thing. And then now we don't even sell map packs anymore. Like, they stopped selling map packs because it helps them sell more copies of the $60 or $70 thing to not make the $20 or $30 on that season pass, and instead go like, well, we have a bunch of optional cosmetics and battle passes now because that's just what games do. And now they're I wonder what they're hoping for. I wonder what their average take per user is. Like, if we remove, like, just for people who purchased Call of Duty, like, let's eliminate the free-to-play Warzone players. I would be really curious to know, like, what the average spend is per year from a Call of Duty buyer. When it comes to, like, so, if the game is $70, but then there's also a $100 version, but that's like, that's coming with a battle pass, that's coming with some other cosmetics or whatever. Like, how much money do they get per player on average over the course of that year? Over the course of a Call of Duty year? Your October to October, November to November, whatever it ends up being. Like, how much do they get? And because if they were getting a lot more on the back end, if they were making a lot of money on the back end, they might be a little less dim on the view of subscription services. Because at some point you're like, well, fuck it, man. Warzone is, people download that for free, and I wonder how many of those players convert and actually spend money, whether it's on a battle pass or how many people download Warzone and then go, fuck it, I'm going to buy real Call of Duty because I want, even if they only want to play Warzone, if they're just like, well, I just want the cosmetics that come with I want to unlock all the guys and ladies that come with the full version of the game or whatever it is. I don't know those numbers. I don't know how to get those numbers. Trying to think how many people I know that are still at Activision somewhere. I don't know. I don't know if I know anyone that would actually have access to those numbers now that I think about it. But anyway. So yeah, it's unsurprising that a company like Activision would take the view that like, hey, if we put Call of Duty into a subscription service, and if we're making any less than whatever their cut is for a retail game sale, what is that, 50 something on a $70 game? I don't know what the cuts are these days. Then if we're making any less than that, we're throwing money away by putting our game onto a subscription service. I'm sure that's their view of it, right? Unless, those players on that subscription service, they do get the revenue from the subscription service, but then they also, maybe again, are those players more likely to buy cosmetics or not? I don't know. You would think that a player spending less money up front might be a little more apt to putting money in on the back end. I definitely, like, when I find a free-to-play game that I actually like, I will put money into it. Like, I'm not opposed to it. And there have been games that I've just been like, well, okay, I really like this game and I'm going to be playing it for a long time. And so I'm just going to put $100 into it right now. Because I know over the course of the next year or whatever it is, I will probably want enough battle passes and cosmetics and whatever else to want to get the best value or whatever it ends up being, Of course, Call of Duty, it double dips on that by selling a $70 game or, in some cases a $100 game, and then also hitting you with a lot of cosmetics too. So yeah, anyway, I guess very long story short, it's unsurprising, the very idea that like Game Pass might in some cases lead to fewer sales of games. You're like, yeah, definitely. When I look at the games on Game Pass, there are some games that you would complete while playing them on Game Pass and never want to see them again, or never need to see them again. It's not like a get out of my face video game. Ugh. It's I had a good time with that and I completed it, and so I'm done and I'm moving on to the next thing, and when it disappears from Game Pass, I won't even notice because I've already finished it, and that's that, So interesting. I don't know. This whole Microsoft Activision thing is getting really ugly. And or it's getting uglier than I thought it would get. I don't know. Maybe the people involved are like, this is exactly how we expected it would go. And we'll see. But yes, as Eurogamer says, it raises interesting questions of the games Microsoft launches within Game Pass on day one, such as its own first-party title slate. I think, again, I think there's also, there's a good bit from October here that I don't think I got into back then that Eurogamer covered. This headline: Microsoft admits many PlayStation exclusives better quality than those on Xbox. Which is just a fucking wild thing. I think it's like you hear that and you hear it in the context of they're trying to get this deal over the line, and they're having to say a lot of things about their business to make sure that no one thinks that they're going to have a monopoly on all of video games. And so let me see if there's a quote in here. So this is an earlier thing, also as part of the going back and forth with the body in the UK. about this, because this is Microsoft claiming that this merger with Activision will be like pro-competitive simply because of Sony being as dominant as they have been. And so here's a quote from Microsoft's response. Again, this is from October. This is not a response to the current Game Pass thing. In addition to being the dominant console provider, Sony is also a powerful game publisher. Sony is roughly equivalent in size to Activision and nearly double the size of Microsoft's game publishing business. And they described God of War, The Last of Us, and Destiny 2 as iconic. There were over 280 exclusive first and third-party titles on PlayStation in 2021, nearly 5 times as many as on Xbox. And Eurogamer says, later on in the document, to prove the merger would have no anti-competitive effect, Microsoft states, Sony has more exclusive games than Microsoft, many of which are better quality. Which is pretty wild. It's pretty wild that, you know, in order to... This reminds me of when they sued Vince McMahon, not a long time ago, or when there was the lawsuit going around and Vince McMahon had to get up on the stand in court and basically say, like, wrestling's fake. What the fuck is wrong with you people? You know what I mean? Like, there's a real, like, yes, we've been saying a lot of things. We've been marketing our thing one specific way for a very long time, but also it's the other way. Yeah, it's very interesting times. And the other thing this reminds me of is I guess it was the Epic lawsuit with Apple. When that started up and a bunch of documents got out that were very specific about, you know, there were like emails with, you know, with publishers, like emails with Phil Spencer and between Epic people and Xbox people and all the other consoles and with Apple, and, you know, there was just a big mess around that stuff. Like there's a dirty laundry aspect to this that makes it very wild and interesting to look at, I guess. But like this Game Pass, the specific kind of like, hey, Game Pass and sales and stuff like that to me kind of seems like common sense. And yeah, I don't know. That's not, to me, that seems like very easy to understand. And also something that, like, as someone who has been in and around and following this industry for a very long time, you just go like, yeah, no, but it's different deals for different pubs and, you know, different developers, and, you know, it's obviously everyone's getting a different deal, hopefully catered to what their needs are. In other news, in probably more important news, the countdown has expired and a new Cosmic Smash game has been announced. That's right. Cosmic Smash, one of the last Dreamcast games from your friends at Sega Rosso. It is coming back, and it is coming back in VR. And I really like Cosmic Smash. It is what is it? It's Breakout. It's a 3D Breakout game. You are a cyber man with a paddle, and you're hitting a ball into, you know, from a behind the back perspective. And so the controls are you running back and forth and jumping and doing trick shots to hit all the blocks. And when you hit all the blocks, you move on to the next stage. It's a very simple concept. It's extremely stylish. It has pretty good music, just really good voice effects. There's a very clean look to it. Every, like, top to bottom is a highly stylish game. And so Cosmic Smash really stood out. It was a game that, again, did not come out in the US, and so not a ton of people know about it. But I really loved Cosmic Smash when it came out. I thought it was pretty awesome. But also it's such a small thing that, like, is such a footnote in the Dreamcast library. Like, does it stand out? Yes, I love Cosmic Smash. It stands out to me, but no one is out there talking about Cosmic Smash. Another one is coming. It is called C Smash VRS. And VRS is both intended to evoke VR as well as versus, because it's going to have competitive play. They put up a countdown for this, and it finally expired yesterday on Monday. And so now there's a store page on the PlayStation Store about it, and a brief little trailer. And it looks cool. Let's see. I don't know. So I guess one of the interesting things about this is that this is being published by a company called Rapid Eye Movers Limited. It is not being directly published by Sega, which says to me that like Sega is open for business when it comes to a lot of the IPs that they know that they're never going to care about ever again. And so if you roll up on Sega and go like, I want to make a new Cosmic Smash, we got to figure it out, they will figure out a way to do business with you, I suppose. And so yes, if you want a new Seaman, go to GDC and pitch Sega on it, I guess. I don't know. So let's see here. We have a handful of bullet points here. Imagine playing the ultimate sport while feeling both stimulated and relaxed, your mind and body at one, with the best music and stunning visuals, a truly transportive experience. Go on a transformative journey to the edge of space and time, alone or with a friend, or play a variety of competitive modes against players worldwide. Experience the ultimate workout with the Infinity Mode. It will have single player, versus, and co-op. It has music from Danalog as well as Ken Ishii, who did music for Rez. They put the word synesthesia into this document, and so they know exactly who they are attempting to sell this game to. Me. Congratulations, you did it. And yeah, let's see here. Built from the ground up by VR pioneers Wolf and Wood and an international dream team of artists, designers, musicians, all committed to changing how a game can make you move, see, hear, and feel. Learn the basics in minutes before going on to master mind and time-bending trick shots and special techniques and so on. Yeah, it's looks great. There's a good list of people working on this. There's a longer, I forget where I saw a longer list that had some of the other stuff here. Let me see if I can pull that up real quick. I was looking at the page yesterday, but must have not saved it. Here we go. So Wolf and Wood, according to Video Games Chronicle, they did a few VR games like The Exorcist Legion VR, A Chair in a Room, Greenwater, which is just a great name. Hotel R&R and The Last Worker. So yeah, this game's coming out of the UK, and a demo is going to come out March 23rd. I think that's the last little bit they announced. They don't have a name, a release date for the full game, but it's going to come out on PlayStation VR 2, and the demo will be out in March. And that's pretty much the detail on it now. The trailer looks good, but it's also, so that's kind of the thing that I was saying back when this teaser site first went up, I think still holds kind of true for me. And that's that, like, okay, this game will have style, right? Hopefully they nail that aspect of it. I feel confident that they will. Hopefully, I mean, if they change the announcer, then I'm out. Is that a weird thing? But gosh, how many years has it been since the Oculus Rift came out? How many years have we been with VR as a consumer product? Was it 2012? 2012? Oh, that was when the Kickstarter started, so that's not when the first Rift came out. But I got my DK1, in 2013. So, and then the real Rift came out, what, 2014? So yeah, we're coming out on, god damn, has it really been a decade of VR? That's like kind of a bummer, right? That like we're like a decade in on this thing and this is still where we're at. But like, anyway, so over that decade, Jesus, I feel like we have seen like one of the first games or among the first games that comes to a VR platform is that like table tennis or VR tennis or VR breakout or, you know, like this game, Cosmic Smash, but with less style. And so the idea of I'm going to hit a ball at a wall and break some blocks, I feel like has been as kind of one of those bread and butter VR experiences, right? And I don't know that I necessarily need to play another one of those. If we remove the part where it's Cosmic Smash and everything else and just try to look at it and go like, well, one of those games in VR, you go like, well, duh, it's a no-brainer. Like, of course you do that. That is like one of the first, you know, if I were recommending VR experiences to a new user, I would be like, this is one of the first 10 things you should do because it's really good for you kind of learning how to move in that space and like, oh, hey, here, you can, you know, you can tilt your hand and hit the ball at a different angle. Like it's sensitive enough to read that. And so it's really good for teaching players like the nuance of what VR controllers can and can't do. And as a result, a lot of these have come out. I remember when the Steam VR stuff first launched, it felt like there were 4 of them all at once. And some of them were competitive, like full on, like here's table tennis, but there were ones that were just like, here's Breakout, but it's first person because it's VR. And so the idea of like VR Breakout is not that interesting. But as a person who loves Cosmic Smash, I don't care. I want to play this anyway. And so how far does that get them, I guess? But also, I'm just going to sit here and ask questions over and over again because, again, like everything else, it's a fucking murky mess. Because how many people know what Cosmic Smash is to begin with? But also, how many players that buy a PlayStation VR 2 will have tried VR in any other way? You know, how many people that'll be new to VR will be getting in on this, I guess, is the question. Like, because we're still, and even after 10 years, there are still plenty of people that have not purchased a VR headset before, that have maybe never tried one on, and so on and so forth. And so I don't know. It's something about just reading right now that we've been doing this for 10 years now really kind of crushed me, you know, in a weird way of like, man, like I've been kind of down on VR for a while now. But it doesn't feel like it's getting better. Like it doesn't feel like there, like, are there advances? Absolutely. It's, you know, the eye tracking, there's, you know, there's all sorts of cool tech advances, higher quality screens, you know, just the PlayStation VR 2, like from a tech perspective, you look at it and go like, that sounds awesome. Like it's not wireless, and, you know, I'm sure other companies, like, it's not a Pimax 8K, blah, 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 but also as something that's going to work on a consumer level and maybe be attainable for players, like, then, you know, it's pretty awesome. They've made some strong advancements and so on and so forth. But then it comes down to the software, and I think that, you know, it's just, I feel like a lot of the software story on VR has just become really stagnant. And obviously, like, a lot of the funding that was there when this stuff was first getting off the ground, and there was this huge groundswell of excitement and like, oh, VR is going to be the next big thing. And, you know, obviously we're still seeing some of that because there's still, actually, you know what? was gonna say there's still a lot of people out there beating the drum about the metaverse, but I guess like it kind of feels like that when Facebook laid all those people off, that the bottom dropped out of people talking about that as if it was going to be like a guarantee, like, oh well, we'll be having these meetings in VR eventually. Like, it feels like a lot of people, even the people that still believe in that stuff, rightfully just went like, we're gonna shut the fuck up about this stuff because no one wants this right now. And maybe no one's going to be able to afford it for a while. I think that's the other key piece of this, is that obviously the PlayStation VR 2 is stupid expensive. It's more expensive than the goddamn console. It's crazy. It's crazy how much money that thing is. For what? And what are the games and granted, they've got a list of like, well, we've got 30 games, and yeah, you can play, if you want to play Gran Turismo 7 in VR, like, yeah, dude, totally. Cockpit-based games, driving games, that stuff can be rad as fuck. But again, as someone who when the PlayStation VR 2 comes out, that will be my, let's see, 1, 2, 3. This will be my 5th VR headset. And I don't even really like VR all that much. I've done this. You know what I mean? Like, that's so for me, actually, maybe that's the thing, is a name like Cosmic Smash holds a lot more weight than here's another $24 thing on Steam that you look at and go like, this is really expensive for what it is. It kind of looks busted, just all these generic fonts and this and that. And like, so if they put together something with actual presentation and actual style, that goes a long way, because a lot of the things that were coming out on Steam still felt like prototypes, and they still felt like everything was just thrown together. And then because they had invested so much money in VR, they all charged $30 for this stuff. And like, the games were all way too expensive and everything else. And yeah, it's a damn mess. It's a mess. But I at the same time, like, as someone who just, like, from a pure tech perspective, I am very excited for the PlayStation VR 2. I want to get one in and check it out, and that, I believe, will be happening pretty soon here. And I want to see those games. Cosmic Smash is probably chief among them, which is why it's kind of a bummer that the game's not a launch game. But they are doing a Fantavision game, which is another way to just get me to go, yeah, of course, yes, okay. Well, I need one of these because I want to see what a new Fantavision game looks like in VR in the year 2023. But like, okay, let's look at let's see if we can find a list of PSVR 2 launch games. All right, so there's a PlayStation blog post about this. We talked about this last month. More than 30 games for the launch window through March is what they're saying here. No Man's Sky will get VR support. Resident Evil Village will get VR support. There's that Horizon game that they're doing. Gran Turismo 7. Before Your Eyes, Kayak VR, Mirage. Is it a tactical kayak? Because if it's not a tactical kayak, I'm not here to do non-tactical kayak. No, this is not a tactical kayak game. Kayak VR Mirage is just a kayak game. Pavlov is coming. That game did very well on PC for people that want like competitive shooters in VR, which is neat. The competitive games in VR are an interesting idea, but I feel like half the time the player count was so low, it was always hard to find a game. I know Pavlov got popular enough that it kind of beat that out, I guess. Puzzling Places, Song in the Smoke, Rekindled, Synth Riders Remastered, Ride the Rails, headset feedback for in-game obstacle. Okay, I'm going to play a little bit of this trailer just because I'm guessing Synth Riders is just, yeah, okay. It might as well be Beat Saber. Sure. Thumper was neat. I didn't like Thumper as much as a lot of other people did, but Thumper's cool. They're going to do that. NFL Pro Era. What the Bat, the follow-up to What the Golf. I'm excited to play What the Bat as a fan of What the Golf. So I bet that they did some fun stuff in VR. Res Infinite, which is an amazing game. Tetris Effect Connected, which was a lot of fun in VR as well. Creed, that boxing game. Oh, okay. They do have a longer list here. After the Fall, Cities VR, Dark Pictures Switchback, Demeo. Fantavision 2020X. I didn't realize that was the full name of that. Oh, Job Simulator is getting a port, I guess. That's cool. Job Simulator's good, but again, you know, it's one of my very few platinum trophies is the Job Simulator trophy. Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge Enhanced Edition. Yeah. Beat Saber is not on the list. I thought that was a launch window game, but I suppose not. Vacation Simulator, the follow-up to Job Simulator, which was fine. Not as funny as Job Simulator, I guess. Yeah, this is just a... Right. I forgot. This list is a list of other games that came out in VR elsewhere. And with a handful of other games that did not. And, yeah. Moss 1 and 2. Pistol Whip. Yeah. A lot of free upgrades, which is nice. Maybe not a lot of free upgrades. There are some free upgrades if you had the PSVR 1 version of a game. But maybe not. Maybe not all of them. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it all does. But I guess like I am powerless against Cosmic Smash. Like I can sit here and tell you why I think VR is just, it's not the right time for it, and the tech needs to be 9 generations further ahead of where it is right now before it can truly go mainstream, but also people are not ready for it or interested in it enough, and all of those things. But and then they're like, well, we're going to make a Cosmic Smash game. And I'm like, okay, all right, well, I definitely want to play that, so I'm there. I definitely want to play that, so I'm there. What else is going on? 22 hours. That is the length of Double Fine's new documentary on the making of Psychonauts 2. It is called Double Fine Psychodyssey. It is a 32-part documentary following the entire development process of the game. I want to watch this. That's a lot. But the previous documentary about Broken Age was a really cool look at game development, and they did a very good job of showing the trials and tribulations of that studio. It is not all sunshine. It is not all like, we're making this video game and it's the most fun thing in the world. It's not like it's not an ad for go work at Double Fine or go work in video games. You know what I mean? Like that Broken Age documentary is like, there's some ups and freaking downs to it. And it sounds like that I have not had time to watch this yet, but it sounds like the Psychonauts 2 documentary is similarly filled with some ups and downs. Now remember, like over the course of this, they got acquired by Microsoft. Like there's a lot of financial things that happened at Double Fine around this time, and so there's a lot of stuff. Gosh, yeah. When I think about, and I don't innately know the blow by blow details of what's going on at Double Fine, but when I think about the last 7-ish years, we were talking about, because Tim Schafer's getting that induction into the AIS, Hall of Fame, and it got me thinking about Double Fine over the last decade or so, and some of the games that they put out around the time of Broken Age, and we were talking about Trenched, we were talking about Iron Brigade, and and Stacking and Costume Quest and all this other kind of the smaller. They did that Sesame Street Connect game that was really fucking cool, and and no one will ever remember it because it's a Connect game, and so it is automatically the worst thing in the world because of the Connect's reputation. But it was really neat. if I had kids then, shit, man, I should go find my Kinect and hook it up right next to my Nuon. Anyway, it's all on YouTube. They just put it up on YouTube, and you can go watch that now. And they are billing it as it is the direct continuation of the acclaimed series Double Fine Adventure and offers even deeper insight into the passion, humor, and heartbreak of video game development. It's yeah, you know, I was not a huge Broken Age fan when that final product came out. I guess I would say the same thing about Psychonauts 2. But that Broken Age era documentary, even if you don't know that game or care about that game, it is still absolutely worth watching. I suspect this is probably in the same boat. Because yeah, that last one they did was killer. So yeah, you should probably go give that a look if you're at all interested in seeing the madness of how video games are actually made, because I bet they show quite a lot of it in here, given their track record. EA is closing on a gigantic deal with the Premier League, which is a group of soccer teams. It sounds like that EA has agreed to pay £488 million. I don't know how much money that is. Let's type that in. £1 million in dollars. That is $594 million in United States dollars. USDs. This will be this is a new 6-year deal according to Sky News, and that this will keep EA as the exclusive video game partner of the Premier League, which is a group of 20 soccer teams. And that is according to Sky News said to be worth more than double the existing deal. And so the interesting thing here is that this is because, you know, obviously, or probably what lets EA spend this kind of money is that the FIFA license is going away, and that EA is, you know, no longer paying FIFA some exorbitant amount of money, and so they can go like, oh, well, we better make sure that we're paying enough to retain the other licenses that will help make our game relevant. And so they're going out there and spending I'm just going to say this is a buttload of money. We're going to call this a buttload. That seems like this is appropriate use of the term. It's a buttload of money. And let's see. Sky Sports News understands it's this commercial strength that has helped convince the would-be defectors who considered joining the European Super League in 2021 that the Premier League is the most financially robust league in world football. Yeah, so like obviously there was those other upstart organizations trying to get teams to defect over to that, but if Premier League is showing up and going like, we're getting licensing money like this, that would keep those teams from, you know, severing ties, I suppose. Let's see if there's any other. No comments on this stuff here. EA just says, we're proud to have a long-standing partnership with the Premier League and its clubs and appreciate their support in our plans for EA Sports FC. We have nothing to announce today. So yeah, I guess that's just another reminder of like, hey, the FIFA name is going away. EA is not going to make a FIFA game anymore. I wonder if the FIFA is, you know, obviously they're serious when they said it, but if you remember at the time, FIFA was like, well, we're going to keep putting out games called FIFA and they'll be the best soccer games on the planet. So, which was hilarious. Not to say that EA is untoppable when it comes to sports games. 2K obviously has made a basketball game good enough to just keep EA from even bothering to make one anymore. So it's incredibly possible that FIFA will end up making a good soccer game. Yeah, this Konami is really the only other publisher out there currently making soccer games that are at least at a scale even close to what they would probably want, right? And yes, eFootball probably just becomes eFIFA, and no one is happy. And so on and so forth. Yeah, I don't know. Soccer. Like many other sports, from the outside looking in, it seems very corrupt. Speaking of corruption, no. Hey, the new Legend of Zelda game is going to be $70. That's $10 more than those games usually are. But this came out simultaneously to the Nintendo Direct last week. There's another story going around saying that this is going to be the largest Switch game. That it's something like 18 gigabytes. I don't know what the next closest game in size is. I would be curious to know how much of that will end up on the cart, and if this is a materials, if they're just like, well, we need to put 18 gigs on one of these things, we need to raise the cost. If this really does mirror back to the SNES days and the N64 days of like, oh, we're charging $100 for this game because we need to, it's cost money to, the game is big, and so it takes a lot of storage space for us to do it. Also, yes, Chad is correct. Like 18 gigabytes being the largest game is really hilarious in a world where we are routinely downloading games that are 100 gigabytes or more. So I guess the upshot of this is Polygon went and asked their Nintendo spokesperson if this is the new standard pricing for first-party Nintendo games, and the response was no. We determined the suggested retail price for any Nintendo product on a case-by-case basis. And so this is not necessarily an across-the-board blanket price increase on Nintendo's games, which then makes me wonder if it is related to the storage costs or something like that. Or yes, if they just know people will pay it. They're like, yeah, we think people will pay $70 for a Zelda game. We think we can do it, so let's do it. I don't know. Polygon also reiterates that Pikmin 4 is $60. That's out in July. And Advance Wars 1 plus 2 Reboot Camp is also $60. That's out in April. Yeah, they had a Nintendo Direct. Kind of out of nowhere, but they that was last week that they did that. And Metroid Prime was probably the biggest thing to come out of that, because they're like, hey, this thing exists and it's out right now. There's also a Konami baseball game that kind of shadow dropped out of the middle of this. And I should buy that and play it. I think it's $1. I think, while we're talking about these $70 games, I think that baseball game came out for 99 cents, because they're just like, fuck it, we want to get people to like Power Pros baseball, and so we're willing to take the hit. Let's see. The big announcements for me personally out of the Nintendo Direct was that Sega is going to be releasing a new Samba de Amigo. And it is called Samba de Amigo Party Central. And it'll be out June 30th. And Samba de Amigo is an incredible Dreamcast game. Great arcade game, whatever. The Dreamcast version, at least when it came out in the US, accounted for larger heights than the Japanese version did. And so, because you have to, it senses you can hold the maracas high, medium, or low. And so you are reading the screen and knowing where to hold, like, oh, you hold one maraca up here, the other one down here, and then shake in time to the music. And so it's shake, shake, two middles, two highs, lows, mids, like that sort of thing. This game, it's going to be full of mini games and all this other stuff, which they did some of these on the previous release of Samba de Amigo, or I guess the last Dreamcast release, the version 2000, had some, pose and pose and some other modes like that in there. Then Gearbox did a Samba de Amigo for the Wii, and I don't remember a damn thing about it. I know it came out. I remember playing it and going, this is fine, but I don't remember anything about that game. They did not announce any specific songs. They just said we'll include 40 songs from a variety of genres like EDM, pop, and Latin. And yeah, we'll see. I don't know. If it doesn't have Samba de Janeiro in it, this game needs to have a lot of the. I feel like a lot of the original music from Samba de Amigo should just be in this game. Yeah, "Take on Me" by Real Big Fish was in was in there, but so was Supersonic Racing, the song from Sonic R, and that was really good in there too. And so there's a lot of just Sega music that should be in there. They should put the what is it? Oh man, what's the name of that song? Remember Jazztronauts, the Source Engine mod? That should be in there. Yeah, Mexican Flyer should be in there. Sure. Why? Well, yes. Why wouldn't you put Mexican Flyer in there? You know, it does, just because it's not a Space Channel 5 game doesn't mean it can't have it. Oh, come on, let's go. Yeah. So I don't know. I am excited. This is another, just like the Cosmic Smash conversation we just had. I am very excited at the idea that someone remembered that Samba de Amigo exists and that they are going to put out a new one. I think that's fan-effing-tastic. This is great news, but without seeing what the soundtrack is in its entirety, it's a little hard to, I'm still a little queasy about it. I'm still like, But as far as gameplay goes, looking at the trailer, looks like they're making another Samba de Amigo game. And it's going to have like a multiplayer, it'll have like online multiplayer modes and stuff like that. But like, Samba de Amigo is pretty much the best. So, great. That's great news. They showed the Dead Cells stuff again. Obviously, that had been announced. There's a new, Style Story? What's the Fashion Dreamer from Exceed. Ghost Trick is being re-released on the Switch, which is great. I hope they make a new Ghost Trick. Ghost Trick is cool. I really liked the look of Disney Illusion Island. That's out in July. And it is I think if you are making a Mickey Mouse platformer and you have put the word illusion into the title of your platformer, I will at least show up and take a look at it, because those Genesis games were outstanding. Illusion Island has a really nice look to it. It's a side-scrolling platformer with Mickey, Minnie, Donald, Duck, and Goofy, who they brought back to life for this. And they showed a little bit of the, oh god, I need the full name of this. Tron Identity, the visual novel set in the Tron universe from Bithell Games, which is that whole sentence is crazy, but that's out in April. Look, I'm not a huge visual novel kind of person, but also there are so few stories. I have Tron fucking comic books, man. There are so few stories set in the Tron universe. That even if they're making a visual novel, I want to see stories that are told in the Tron universe. And so I'm very interested in seeing how this comes out. And so they showed that. That's also coming to PC, but that's out in April, so that's actually not very far off at all, which is cool. And so we're in a weird turn of events. Is the best Nintendo Switch publisher Disney? Did Disney go and become the best publisher of games on Switch? This Nintendo Direct would seem to indicate that's the truth, because both of those games look fucking awesome. Yeah, what else? I don't know. They showed Pikmin 4. They showed some more Mario Kart DLC. Oh, hey, there's a new Professor Layton. That's cool. They didn't really show anything other than the title. It's called Professor Layton and the New World of Steam. And meanwhile, it's on Switch. I don't get it. And yeah, I was not, I guess I was not really blown away by the first party portion of the presentation. I think they really, hey, look, I don't think they really need to show anything more on Zelda. If it's coming out, just put it out. And so, but they did still close with it. But also what they showed, I thought was really short and pretty underwhelming. And so I feel like if that's what you're going to show, don't show anything. People already want Zelda. This didn't affect anything one way or the other, but also it just, I don't know, it didn't either put out a big long story trailer that's like, hey, here's the big thing here, or put out a ton of gameplay that says here's the thing here, or put out nothing. Instead, they put out this short little thing that's just like, okay, yeah, all right. Game is still coming out. Okay. It looks good. It looks fine. You know, like, hey, it's out in May. I want to play the new Legend of Zelda game, but I didn't need another trailer to do that. But I guess so that gets into a lot of the. It's very easy to try to pick apart these presentations and try to get like they should have had this, but maybe they don't fucking have that. Like, oh, they should have had more of this and less of this. It's like, okay, well, maybe that's not ready. Maybe they don't have this to show. Maybe this doesn't exist. Maybe this is just you spiraling out of control and demanding new entries and franchises that they have no intention of making, or whatever it is. And so it's really hard to pick that apart from like, well, realistically, what could they have done? Yes, exactly. A Sin and Punishment remaster. Come on. Get around to what's real. Batten Kaitos 1 and 2 HD is going to come out for the Switch. And yeah, I don't know. Like it got me really thinking, Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games are now available on the Nintendo Switch online service emulator thing. The Game Boy stuff is available to everyone that has the online package, and the GBA stuff is only for people who bought the expansion pass. Sure. That's good, I guess. There's a lot of ways to play Game Boy and Game Boy Color and GBA games in this day and age. So it's hard to get excited for. Okay, Polygon put up a list. This is one of those headlines that is going to SEO just fine. Every Game Boy and GBA game now on Nintendo Switch. And here is the list of games that are now available for, we'll start with Game Boy, as Polygon did. Tetris. Done. All right, good. Super Mario Land 2. Okay. This is Super Mario Land 2 is a bummer because I think they should put Super Mario Land 1 on the service. And you don't go and release 1 after you release 2, right? Maybe they will, but I think Super Mario Land 1 is a fantastic game. You go back to it now, Mario controls weird. It's a weird thing. But that game is still great. If they're going to put Game Boy games out, I feel like they should do that. Anyway, Super Mario Land 2 6 Golden Coins is also an awesome Game Boy game. The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening DX, unbeatable. Yep, sure, great game. You can't, what are you going to do? Gargoyle's Quest, that's a good, fun pull. That game, I remember being well regarded. Game & Watch Gallery 3. Alone in the Dark, The New Nightmare. A game no one wants to play again. Metroid 2, which I know they remade it, and a lot of people have remade that game. And I think those remakes have been kind of neat. I don't think the original Metroid 2 is a good, it's cool that Samus is as big as she is because the Game Boy screen was so small. It's one of those games you look at the same way you look at that first Ninja Turtles game. and you go like, wow, it's got big sprites. I mean, they're not like China Warrior big, but like Metroid 2 just feels like it's a hard game to go back to in its original form because it's a Game Boy game, and cool that you can play it, but not awesome. Wario Land 3, yeah, sure, and Kirby's Dream Land, which is a great game. They also announced future releases, The Legend of Zelda Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages. Those are awesome. The Pokemon trading card game, sure. And Kirby Tilt and Tumble, which is awesome. That's a great game. It also means that I guess they're going to have to emulate the motion sensor on the Joy-Con motion sensor, which is neat. That's the one thing that I saw that I was like, oh, cool. That's work that they're doing. You know, that's like work that they're going to do to make a game that was actually kind of hard to play any other way and make it work. Tilt and Tumble is an awesome video game. And I look forward to like that's cool that they did the work to make that happen, because that cartridge had a motion sensor in it, and that's how you played it. You had to hold it and tilt the whole Game Boy around, which in the case of a freaking Game Boy where you're looking at the screen, you're tilting, is not a great experience. But hey, yeah, hopefully this leads to WarioWare Twisted, and hopefully this leads to Boktai. I don't know how they'll do a sun sensor, but okay, for GBA, available right now is Super Mario Advance 4, which is Super Mario Brothers 3. This has the levels from the e-card reader in it, which some people are very excited about because it's an easier way to play some of those levels. Okay. WarioWare Incorporated Mega Micro Games. That's just one of the greatest games ever made right there. So there you go. Kururin, which is like it's a game with a rotating stick. Imagine if the stick was okay. We all know what a rotating limousine looks like, right? We all know what a rotating limousine does. But imagine if it was just a stick that spun instead of a limousine, and it didn't have FMV, but was like a pretty colorful, cool game. That's a great game. It's hard. Kururin is a really awesome video game. And yeah, I don't know that game got released in the US. I don't know that it got a US release. You should just go play Roundabout. No, you know what? You should play Roundabout, but also play Kururin because it's also very good. Mario Kart Super Circuit, Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, and The Legend of Zelda Minish Cap. Those are all solid. I mean, Minish Cap is more than solid, but and Mario and Luigi is quite good as well. And then as far as future releases, Metroid Fusion, which is pretty good. It's a pretty good game. Kirby and the Amazing Mirror. All right. Fire Emblem for GBA. I've just never been a Fire Emblem. F-Zero Maximum Velocity and Golden Sun, which those are two franchises, two games we have not heard from in a very long time. It feels like the idea that Nintendo has said the words or printed the words Golden Sun on something in 2023 is maybe enough cause for rejoice that maybe this eventually leads to something else out of that franchise. Who knows? It'd be great if they did a new Golden Sun. It'd also be great if they did a new F-Zero. And so the idea that they're doing the GBA F-Zero for this, you could either take it as they're doing this because they have no intent of ever making another one ever again, or they're doing this because they want you to remember it exists, and hopefully they'll put out another F-Zero someday. I have my doubts. But I remember that GBA F-Zero game being really good, but it was also very early, right? It was like, that was a launch game. And so maybe that's a game that maybe doesn't stand up as well today, but it's been a long time since I've played that game. I remember that being the game I remember that being like the GBA game, or at the time, because again, we were like importing GBAs from Japan and getting, the other stuff that was coming out was like advanced GT racing, and there was a bunch of trash in the Japanese GBA launch, if I remember right. And so, yeah, I don't know. I remember liking that game a lot. And that's pretty much what happened at the Direct. There were a few other things here and there. Like I said, I was relatively underwhelmed by it. I think, like, looking back on it after having played some Metroid Prime now, I feel a little bit better about it. Like, okay, that's a cool release. They made nice changes. But I don't know what it really. And I go through this, I feel like every third Nintendo Direct, I have this moment of like, well, what do I even want out of Nintendo in this day and age? What is reasonable to expect out of Nintendo first party now? Like if you look at the games they put out, the regularity they put them out in, like I really would love more. I guess, like, Splatoon went so well for them the first time out that, like, I really would like to see more new stuff from them. But also there's a part of me that's like, oh, it would be really interesting if they made a new Kid Icarus, or F-Zero is a good one, but like F-Zero, it's a racing game. There are a lot of futuristic racing games over the years. It's easy to think, like, it's easy to see why they don't go out and make yet another F-Zero game without having a really good idea about why they make one. You know what I mean? Because I think if they put one out and it's just like, oh, it's a cool futuristic racer, and you're like, okay, they're still putting out DLC for Mario Kart. Like, they're, that's where the money is being made in racing at Nintendo right now. So I see why they might be a little gun shy at doing a new F-Zero at this point right now, and why, when this Mario Kart is done and they're like, okay, now maybe there's room for another racing game, they're going to go, okay, well, let's make another one then, because it sold so fucking well that it would be dumb for them to not just make another Mario Kart at some point. Like, once they're done with all this DLC and it comes time to, like, oh, it's been a while, or wait, we have a new platform out, or what are we going to do? Like, yeah, here's another Mario Kart, and we're still not going to make another F-Zero. And then someone goes, what about Diddy Kong Racing? And they just go, yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, we'll get fucking right on that. Yeah, Diddy Kong Racing. Get fucked. What are you talking about? So like, what do I really want out of Nintendo? Because I think, people just go nostalgia crazy and they go like, oh, I want one of these. Like, what do I feel like, for me, it's, I will always want, you could put one out last week and I would say, you should keep making more of these. I always want a new, great, all new, but traditional gameplay WarioWare. I think that last WarioWare was like some real monkey's paw, like real unfortunate situation there. I think that last WarioWare game on Switch was a bummer. It had like no extras. It had like the way you controlled characters, and I don't think that worked well for it at all. And I think I think that was an incredibly disappointing game. By that same token, I will always want a new Rhythm Heaven. Always. I will always want there to be a new one of those. It sounds like the creator of that franchise is maybe not doing great, and maybe that has led to we may not see one of those again. Yeah, Elite Beat Agents, someone said in the chat, like, yeah, absolutely, a new Elite Beat Agents would be fun. But like, I would be excited about a new Mario game. Like, I'm not, I ain't a hard guy, like, hey, Yeah, make a new Mario game. I liked Odyssey a lot. I thought Odyssey was a cool fucking video game. I don't necessarily want to see them make just another one of those. But, hey, if they're going to make a new Mario game, I'll show up for it. If they decide someday, oh, we're going to make another one. Like, yeah, I'll check it out. Hey, you can count on me to take a look at the new Mario game if it comes out. That's my promise to you. I think that cool open world DLC, the Bowser's Fury stuff, was really neat. And at the time you were like, hey, is this going to be the big guidepost for what the next Mario game looks like? But now enough time has passed that it's like, oh, I don't know that it's guaranteed that that's necessarily going to be the case, but that we'll see. I don't know. That's, I don't know. Some people go like, oh, they need to make Galaxy 3. They need to make, like having their specific carved out, zone of the Mario sub franchises to go like, no, they need to make one of these. And, I'm sure there's some like sicko in jail right now, locked up in solitary confinement, like audio, just they don't let his voice be heard by other prisoners because they think it will cause people to feel violently ill and sick. And they don't want to have that in the prison. But there's a guy somewhere locked in there just going like, they should make another Super Mario Sunshine. And then he gets like zapped. And this is why I'm pro private prisons, because we need to keep these people locked down and keep them out of this is why we need to keep them away from the general population. Of a prison? Yes. Of civilization? Absolutely. These people need to be locked away. And then my joke answer is always they should make a new urban champion, but ARMS is ARMS is actually a backdoor urban champion reboot. So what are you gonna do? Make a new Steel Diver. Where's our Steel Diver sequel? I don't know. I don't know what. I guess that's my long-winded way of saying I have no real, like, firm. A lot of people are like, Nintendo must do this. I don't have that. I want them. I want them to be surprising. I want them to do things that are coming out of left field. I want them to, but I also want them to make great large follow-ups to their biggest franchises, like I think that would be cool too if they made a new one of these Mario games. So give me all of it, I guess. I don't know, but I think there's a lot of franchises that the Nintendo franchises of my youth, I think a lot of those have dried up and gone away for a good reason, and I don't think you necessarily have to keep all of those going. Excitebike is a great example. I love Excitebike. Do you need to make a new, dirt bike game in 2023/4? No. Because what do you make, what are you really making at that point? Excite Truck was, Excite Truck was just them slapping the name. Excite Truck was okay. But didn't evoke Excitebike the way you would want, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, Trials already exists. That's if I want a dirt bike game in a side-scrolling format, it'd be cool if they made another Trials, maybe. I don't know. That last one was maybe not great. But what do is someone out there going like, man, if they would only make a new Mach Rider? Like, no. But someone is, because they're all sickos. We're all sickos when it comes to this. So I don't know. Wrecking Crew. Let's make a new Wrecking Crew. I think they should make a new Mario Maker and make it good this time. That'd be nice. I think Mario Maker 2 bummed me out. But I think to truly make a Mario Maker game great, you need the tools, you need the hardware tools to do it and the Wii U was so uniquely equipped to doing that, and they don't have that anymore. You know what I mean? So if they, that award-winning sales success that was the Wii U, if they could just make a follow-up to the Wii U for their next console, I think that's a gangbusters idea that can't fail. Honestly, if you hear me out here for like another 45 seconds, what if the next Switch, instead of just being like, hey, it's going to run at this resolution undocked and this resolution docked because power and heat or whatever, what if they actually did put an external GPU into the dock, and then you could actually dock it for a meaningful amount of additional power? But also, what if you put another fucking CPU or a streaming or something in there so that when you were undocked, you could have a different looking thing on your TV as you did on your handheld, like the Wii U, for example? What if they did that? What if they fucking did that? That'd be fucking crazy. They're not gonna, they're not gonna do that, but like, what if they did? And no, then you could wirelessly stream from the Switch to your TV, which would not be a playable, I don't know, whatever. But I guess like that's the thing, is it's the stylus, the way the Wii U worked and the way it all felt and worked, I think just ended up being a much better and smoother way to make levels than it ended up in Mario Maker 2 on the Switch. And so, yeah, I should still, sometimes I think like I should dig my copy of Mario Maker 2 out, and I'm looking around. It's not even in this room anymore. It's in a box in my garage. It works okay. Yeah, Game Builder Garage had the same problem as Mario Maker in a lot of ways, where they're like not doing a good job of surfacing creations to other players, and so people had to go build other functionality to try to make it work, and that was kind of a bummer. Speaking of kind of a bummer, they're taking the realistic vaginas out of The Witcher 3. This is the Eurogamer headline. CD Projekt Red confirms it's working to address inclusion of realistic vaginas in The Witcher 3. Yeah, happy Valentine's Day. The accidental inclusion stems from the use of mods from the community. The quote here from their spokesperson to Eurogamer is, "The next-gen version of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt features several community-sourced mods, not created by CD Projekt Red, on top of numerous enhancements created and implemented by the studio internally. Merging everything together was a complex process, and the textures in question are an unintended result present in the release version. This is something we are working to address." And Kotaku got a quote out of them saying that the visible labia and pubic hair textures will be removed, as those textures were not meant to be present in the release version of the game. Okay. Well, there you have it. The modder who made those, who hooked up those fannies, is also mad because they're like, hey, you stole my work. So what I don't know. This is, and Cyberpunk has all this stuff just in it as stock, so I don't, why are they even taking them out? Probably an ESRB thing. I wonder. Yeah. So I wonder if this is a situation where are there physical copies of this game that have those textures on them? Or is that going to be a collector's item? Do we need to collect the hot coffee version of The Witcher 3 now? As I raise my eyebrows over and over again. I don't actually know. because I don't, are these things that you see like, all right, I'm asking questions I don't think I actually want the answers to at this point. The Division 2 is in the news. This is from Polygon, but also from the Division Twitter account. Originally, they were supposed to launch their 11th season of content called Reign of Fire on February 7th. And they have issued a screenshot on Twitter of some text. Last week, we shared news that the season would be delayed due to a localization issue. This past Saturday, in the process of creating the update which would resolve the issue, we encountered an error that brought down the build generation system for the Division 2. As a result, we cannot update the game until this system has been rebuilt. In the past, when a season was delayed, we extended the previous season's activities. Unfortunately, this is not possible in the current situation, as we are unable to make server or client-side updates until the build generation system is restored. That's fucking crazy. We are working to resolve the situation as quickly as possible. We have made good progress over the last 96 hours and have been able to restore critical aspects of the system and will share the timeline for resolution when available. Our next update will be provided tomorrow. Let's look at the... Okay, and then the following day, and this is their actually most recent update, they took the servers down for maintenance. It says, we have good news. We have successfully created and deployed a server-side update. This is now live and extends Season 10 content. We deeply appreciate your support and patience. More news about Season 11 and in-game compensation will be shared at a later date. I cannot remember a situation where they said, hey, everything we used to generate builds of the game blew up, and we have to reassemble all of that. That is kind of a shocking one. I wonder what happened there. The game still was up and running. It wasn't like that took the game or the servers down. It was more of a situation of they were like, oh God, we are unable to do this. Yeah. Yes. Jake in the chat says someone got fired. I wonder. But I guess that's my question is not someone got fired for it breaking. My thing is more like, did someone walk out and break it on their way out? Because obviously it feels like there's been a number of departures across Ubisoft lately. Who knows? We will probably never know. But that's a weird one, right? The very idea that they're just like, hey, it's a good thing there's no like weird remote code exploit, or, you know, I guess they would just take it down if there was anything that major, but I can't think of a situation where developers come out and said like, we are totally unable to issue an update for the game because of what just happened. And like the idea, yeah, like, is the build system not backed up somewhere? They can't restore that. They don't got a tape backup somewhere. They need to get Backblade. No, it's a really wild idea that there's no, and I don't know. Like how, yes, find the floppy disk with the build code on it, put it back in the A drive, turn the machine on, it'll be fine. So that's a weird one. I don't know. I thought that was a fascinating story that I guess is still ongoing because they've made progress and they've put out a server-side update, but they can still, it seems like they still have not issued new dates for the start of the next season. The last season, I guess, started in September. That game just came out on Steam pretty recently too, so I don't, maybe there might be a new wave of people playing it. That might be a bummer, but yeah, we'll have to watch and wait and see if they have further kind of, I would love to read like a post-mortem from them on this as to like, here's what happened, because that just sounds like a crazy one. That's it for news. Why don't we get into a little bit of email here before we hit the bricks? Podcast@guard.bike is the email address for you to send in your emails to. I am pushing the email button and it is not loading. There it is. Okay. Okay. Let's take a look. Ben in Boston writes in and says, place your bet. Which company will give up first? Amazon Luna or Netflix's gaming initiative? I'm going to say, well, I'm going to say Amazon Luna. Luna's game library, as I understand it, has been losing games quite a bit lately. And the Netflix thing, as much as I think it is a pain, and as much as I think it's not something I would ever be interested in, as a person who has not subscribed to Netflix, this is not going to make me subscribe to Netflix. And so those games are just kind of like, all right, they might as well not exist, really. But as an added benefit to existing Netflix subscribers, like they're getting seemingly good games for that service. So I don't know how well, but also I think that's a larger question about like how is Netflix doing, and how many Netflix subscribers care at all about phone games whatsoever, and so on and so forth. So it's a more complicated question. Obviously Netflix seems like they are not doing amazing lately, and it sounds like they have pulled back quite a bit on content development in general. And so the idea of them having a gaming initiative, you could very easily see them going like, oh yeah, fuck man, we need to repurpose these people into finding new ways to fuck over people that share their passwords. So if we could kill all this game stuff and you guys could get over into the password division, we'll get on it. So, but I still, my gut tells me that Luna is the thing that folds first. It's pretty grim that it's not like, I don't think either of them will fold. I'm like, oh yeah, which one of these falls apart first? Probably Luna, but the Netflix thing could too. Like, oh, geez. Spencer from Basildon writes in and says, have the Red Hot Chili Peppers ever been good? Man. Yes, I guess. Yes. Or no. Okay. Have I ever thought the Red Hot Chili Peppers were good? Probably not. Was there a time in history where the Red Hot Chili Peppers were more popular and not clowned on nonstop the way they seem to be now? Yes, absolutely. Was there a time when I thought that Flea was cool? Yes. Was there a time when I thought Anthony Kiedis was cool? No. But yeah, I don't know, man. When, Flea seems like an all right dude. And he's, he plays bass well. But yeah, I don't know. That early stuff seemed good for what it was. I was not super into it then. That was just not a style of music I was ever going to vibe with then. But yeah. Jordan from Oklahoma City writes in and says, it feels like the world is ripe for Mecha Hitler. So I must ask, where is Wolfenstein 3? It's been nearly 6 years since the new Colossus and 4 since Youngblood. I remember that they're doing the Indiana Jones thing too, but come on, man, what gives? Yeah. Yeah, I don't, it feels like that story is still open-ended, but Youngblood, I don't know, that I don't feel like that didn't do great. I feel like Wolfenstein 2 didn't. Wolfenstein 2 was good. It was like, it got frustrating in some parts. Near the end, especially. And kind of, I don't know. Wolfenstein 2, I feel like just kind of, the things they expanded upon weren't always great. The things that didn't expand upon kind of, yes. LL0X says, I think Wolf 2 underperformed, and then Youngblood was really unpopular. Yeah, Youngblood was not awesome. They did that VR game, and obviously, whatever. But I definitely remember coming out of Wolfenstein 2 going like, man, I really want to finish this story. Like, there's neat little bits in their little alternate history thing that I thought were really well done. And I thought that it was worth putting up with the aspects of that game that were not much fun to play. Even, just because it was worth seeing that stuff through. And so I would be interested in seeing a third one of those, if only because it felt like a trilogy and it felt like they needed to make another one of those. I don't know. Has enough time passed that did they miss the window on closing that out? Like, if you made another Wolfenstein now, would you just start over? I don't even know. I think we're in a weird lane right now where it feels like almost too long for them to put out the third one of those, but not long enough for them to reboot it. And so I'd wonder. I don't know. Yeah, I was promised a fight with a mecha Hitler. I appreciated at the time when those games were coming out that Bethesda was willing to just go on the record and be like, yeah, fucking Nazis suck, you fucking dumbass. Like, I think their attitude about that was wholly appropriate and pretty awesome. As depressing as it was that it felt like it needed to be said, in some ways it still needs to be said. But yeah, I don't know. I thought that was cool. And yeah, I don't know. I think they should, I would like to see another one of those games get made. But oh man, I was gonna, you know what? All right, what year did those games take place in? It's like, because they go pretty far. Is Youngblood was that the one that was like set in like did they do one that was like kind of set in the 80s? Yeah, late 60s for some of those games. That's right. Yeah, maybe too far of a leap to do. But what if they made it modern day? What if Wolfenstein 3 was set in 2023? That'd be a really fucked up, that'd be a really crazy fucking video game to spin their alt history. Like, hey, we spun our alt history all the way out to 2023, and it turns out it just lined up with real 2023. So here you go. That would be a fucking fascinating. I don't know. That would be a very interesting way to go with that. Like, you thought it was going to be Mecha Hitler, but also it's Mecha BJ because they cut his head off and froze it for decades or something, I don't know. Usually if you want Mecha BJs, you got to build you got to get a lot of duct tape. The whole thing. Daddy Warbucks from the Discord writes in and says, and asks, do you ever think companies leak shit on purpose? As someone who's been in the industry for a hot minute, what are your thoughts? Oh, okay. I thought Daddy Warbucks was saying that they were in the industry, but no, I cover the industry. I'm in a different industry. I'm in the energy drink industry. I just like video games on the side. What are your thoughts on tinfoil hat conspiracies about things like Netflix's accidental posting about their new password sharing bullshit? Do you think any of these companies ever do this kind of thing on purpose to test the reaction of the public? Would a company ever send info to the press to leak to gauge reactions? Or is that an insane thought and has probably happened a small number of times? It's one of those things that at first glance makes some sense, but kind of falls apart when you start to really think about it. Yeah, no, totally. Yes. That has absolutely happened. There's definitely been cases of like, oh, we're gonna. I don't know about the Netflix password sharing stuff, or whatever but like, yes, games have been leaked. Not necessarily to gauge reaction, but there have been cases where games have been leaked to try to generate a different type of excitement for them ahead of the official announcement. Or a case where like, hey, we were going to announce our game at E3, and now we realize it's going to get buried by a lot of other news, and so we've decided to leak our own game a week and a half early. That totally has happened. And it's not something that I think is a particularly common marketing tactic, but yes, that has happened. Normally the thing that'll happen is you'll have a company that has this really, what they think is a really fun marketing idea. It's not quite an ARG, but the Mario movie website made me think of this, because there's been companies, and I'm not as privy to this as maybe I was years and years ago, but I remember a company would launch something like that. They'd be like, here's our fun hidden website, and we think it'll be a cool viral thing. And then they put it out and no one notices because they forgot to figure out a way to like leak it or tell people about it or whatever. And so you'll hear from some marketing or PR person like 5 or 6 days later, and they're like, hey, did you see this thing? Did you see this thing we put it? See this fun website? This is tied into a thing we're now and they just have to tell you, hey, this is a website we built for an upcoming announcement, and then you're like, okay, I guess we'll forward it to the news team. I don't think, like, good job, I guess. Just like that it just falls completely flat. That's got to be a bummer to work on one of those things and think like, this is going to be really exciting for the community. It's a little different now that social media exists. This is, again, all very old stuff. Now there's not as many secrets, I guess, when it comes to that. Let's take one more. Let's see. I want to say we took this one. I want to say I did this one last week, so I'm going to unstar that email and let it go away. Brian writes in and says, what are your thoughts on friend-based features on consoles for people who don't also play on PC? I thought the friend feed was a nice feature on the PlayStation 4. I liked seeing what my friends have been playing and showing off my trophy progress. On PS5, though, the friend feed still seems to be replaced by YouTube clips from random people. I never feel like I get anything of value there. I'm sure Sony has data to back up their decision, but do you think removing visibility of friend activity was a bad move? I don't know that Sony has data to back up some of those decisions. When I think about how ramshackle the PS5 interface seemingly came together at the very last minute there, and how broken some of the store stuff was at launch, and I suspect it is probably still broken in some ways, or they've just gotten used to the ways in which it is broken. I just, at this point, I don't want to build yet another friend list. And so I tend to appreciate the way that I think Xbox moving to a follower concept, I think works a little bit better. And this is maybe something that's specific to me because I just don't really like building friends lists, but and so on PlayStation, I've actually locked my account down to where I don't get requests from people. On Xbox, I don't have to do that because people can just follow me and then they can see what achievements I'm getting or not getting or whatever. And it's fine, fine, here, take a look. But on PlayStation, then that opens up then they can send messages, then they can do this. And I'm like, I don't read my messages on PSN. I don't read my messages on Xbox, but I just don't look at that stuff because, and because I'm usually I'd say it's a Discord thing, but also like I've largely stopped reading DMs on Twitter. I don't get that many, but also every time I look at it, I go, ah, shit, there's someone here I need to respond to from 3 weeks ago, and stuff like that. But like, I think it's cool that they're both integrating Discord. Now the Sony Discord integration is out as a beta. They have a firmware beta running right now that has that stuff in it, I believe. And, I think unified stuff, because games are going to be cross-play, right? And so now you are going to want to have ways to reach out and talk to people that might not be on PlayStation or might not be on Xbox or whatever. And so having a cross-platform way to do so, I think, is smart. Without every developer having to go build their own messaging system, right? Because everyone who does crossplay then is like, well, here's your Capcom ID. Because we can't allow name collisions across these services, so you have to pick a new name on top of your PSN name that is now your Capcom name or your Activision name or your, whatever else. And so that's even clunkier in some ways. I don't want to keep track of even more passwords. Not that you have to. Once you set it up once, generally, it just knows what accounts are linked to it and just logs in automatically. But it's still like yet another account, yet another set of data out there that can get hacked and whatever else. It's frustrating to have to do all that shit. It's similarly frustrating, the whole third-party launcher on Steam. The way EA does it, the way that Ubisoft does it. The way Ubisoft does it is particularly bad. But all this account linking and all this other stuff and getting it all up and running and separate, and then some other game comes out and you're like, now I need a Warner Brothers ID because I want to play Mortal Kombat. And is this a Mortal Kombat ID, or is this a across-the-board Warner ID? Do I need a 2K, a My 2K account to do this and that? Like, all that stuff just sucks. But everyone wants to be able to send you emails. It's as simple as that. They want to be able to send you emails saying, like, did you know that experimental LeBron James is now available in multiverses? You should fucking check that shit out. So, it's in those companies' best interest to own the consumer, if you will, to have their own set of contact details that they can email so that they can market directly to them and all that other shit. So yeah, man, it's I think that social features on console, like, you need to have them because you need to be able to send out invites. You need to be able to do all that stuff. But like, I agree. I thought the PlayStation 4 stuff, and I think this could be better on Steam. I think Steam could do a better job of surfacing what your friends are doing. They do have a page for that, but I feel like it's always buried. I feel like there's probably like a single page dashboard / homepage for Steam that doesn't exist that I think would be a lot cooler than what they have now. Like, that page is there. You can go find a feed of what your friends are doing and what games they're buying and which weird porn games they're getting achievements in. I don't have the name of it in front of me. I played a pornographic video game the other night because it just came. I think it just came out. The developer is updating it pretty frequently, but it's like a third-person shooter that also has like flight sequences in it, and it's not. None of it is great. None of it is. You're not playing like, this is a world-class shooter, but it's not a visual novel, is my point. And so it's this intriguing thing of like, all right, and then I guess I have to. And so it's this terrible, and I think it's called Aria, ARIA. It's Aria Genesis, I think might be the name of it. And this is not a recommendation. And if you go to the Steam page for this, you will see nudity. You will see video game nudity. So I just be warned that is happening before you go there. And it is not a good shooter. The flight sequence in it is a mess. but also it's this weird thing where like you're this lady running around with butt cheeks flapping all over the place, and it's like a behind the back shooter, right? So you're just like staring at this weird polygonal butt going wow, 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 as you're shooting these like awful guns that feel so bad, like no hit feedback. And it's made by like, I think it's like a single developer. So I want to be kind of like kind to it in a weird way, because it's a single developer that has been working on this for like years. And so it makes sense that it's not like good, but it's so much more ambitious than every other weird porn game on Steam that it's like kind of fascinating. And you're like, you go back to your apartment and it's like, do you want to do yoga? And I'm like, I guess. And then push this button if you want to do it naked. And I'm like, well, I guess I want to do it naked. And then it's just like all these poses. You're just like, all right, is this? Sure, this polygonal, I guess, I don't know. And there's a lot of Japanese, like every, you know, the dialogue is just written on the screen, you know, but then like every line of dialogue has like a little Japanese like quip that goes with it. And it's just like, it's a really fascinating fucking thing, man. It's not, I don't think it's especially hot. I don't think it's just like a good video game. Like it kind of like fails to check any of its boxes, but it is trying to check so many boxes that it's just this incredibly bizarre thing. You're just like, what is this? It's so bad across the board, but like, I cannot fault the developer for going like, it's about time someone made a porno video game that wasn't just a clicker or like a bad whatever, you know, like that someone set out to go like, no, we're gonna make this third person shooter, we're gonna make that, you know, and to set up the cyber themed third person shooter, and you're gonna be a spy, but also you got this big old bouncy butt. It's crazy. I'm gonna say don't buy it. No part of it seems good. No part of it seems like it is a quality product, but at the same time, it was fascinating to look at from the perspective of like, boy, most of the porn games on Steam are barely even video games. Like, do you recognize this as a video game? Sure, it seems like a broken PlayStation 2 game, but you know, it's at least some, I don't know, it's something. It's fucking something, man. So that's how I've been spending my time, investigating brand new video games. That's gonna do it. You know, just The Witcher 3 wasn't doing it for me anymore. Once I heard they were taking those textures out, I'm like, well, I'll show them. Anyway, I read the patch notes. There appears to be some kind of racing mini game in it as well. So we'll be streaming that tomorrow. No, obviously we can't. Obviously, you know, I can't stream it. The man won't let me stream this hot video game to you. I'm gonna get going. That's the podcast. We'll be back Wednesday. I don't know playing what. I don't even know. If I can't play that, then what can I play, really? We'll figure something out. I don't know if I'll stream more. Well, I mean, maybe we need to really dive into Highlander one of these days here, but I need to get out in my garage and find my Jaguar controllers. Because there's a lot of Jaguar games that need to be played with the proper controller, and we're going to experience the magic as it was meant to be experienced by hooking a Jaguar controller up to a PC, right? That's what Jack Trammell had in mind when all of this was going down. Anyway, take care of yourselves. I'll start the music here because we are going to go, and I mean it this time. And yeah, heck, I don't know. I'm working on getting all the retro achievements for Mario No Super Picross on the SNES. Black has retro achievements now. We could always play through Black one of these days and be reminded that it wasn't nearly as good as that demo I got at E3. Boy, one of the coolest demos I ever saw at E3, but the final version of Black was Like, do you like it when enemies stand next to exploding barrels? Because Black is that as an entire game. The entire game of Black is just that. Over and over and over again. Kind of underwhelming, ultimately. But anyway, take care.